My entitled father is demanding that I pay him back for all the child support he paid me while I was growing up. And I'm honestly blown away that he's trying to pull this stuff on me, especially because he thinks that because I have a job now, I'm somehow rich and I can afford it, putting me in a situation that is completely ridiculous. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm a little bit fuzzy on the details now, as I do have some blocked memories about this, but I remember one day after working at a restaurant from basically 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, while also having no lunch, barista, bartender, server, or dish pig, my dad cornered me and said that since I'm so rich, which by the way I wasn't, I was a manager making less than the junior staff, I should pay him back on all the child support my mother stole from him. He then showed me the letters that he kept, and with the way he went on and on over the year, I expected it to be thousands per month. And sure, I went to a private school, but they chose to send me there before they even got divorced. The plan had originally been for me to go there from pre-primary, but they missed the cutoff, so I went from year 7 until 12. Also, the cost for the school was done separately, completely outside of child support. So what it was used for was for uniforms, swimming lessons, healthcare, and a phone plan until I turned 16. Then I paid for my own with help from my mom to top it off occasionally, as I used my phone as a hotspot so my sister could do homework. Because after all, my dad didn't want to pay for Wi-Fi, as he said we would just waste it, which trust me is a long story in and of itself. The rest they just dealt with on their own and just paid for it if it was their week. And so basically he didn't pay anything, maybe like $20 per week for 2 kids. For a year, I listened to him guilt trip me on this and try to twist us against our mom. And you know what? Sometimes it worked. He would sometimes say he couldn't even afford food because of us. All that to find out he paid practically nothing. He worked as a locksmith and then a motorbike mechanic in a specialized area. And then he went right back to being a locksmith. I'm in contact with him now, obviously, and my sister lives with him still, but we're fine. She comes over to stay at my place pretty often, mostly just so she can get Wi-Fi for once. But she prefers dads to moms as she has issues with our mom, which also is another longer story. He even just took my sister on a week-long trip to Bali, with all expenses paid. She's 20 years old and hasn't had a job for over a year. And when I last lived with him, I was the cook, the cleaner, the caretaker of my sister, the dog walker, and the person putting myself in the middle deliberately to avoid hospital visits and animal mistreatment. But yeah, my dad is literally a begging man-child and I'm honestly so sick of him. Yeah, your dad's super immature, like that's really obnoxious. This guy literally tried to act like you're the problem when it comes to him paying child support. But it's like, dude, that's not my fault, that's on you. You're the one that has to deal with that, not me. Sorry for existing, I guess, but like if you didn't want to marry mom, then maybe you shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. And I just love the fact that he's like, oh yeah, you're gonna pay me back all this money for child support. You're rich, you could do that. Meanwhile, this idiot literally didn't pay hardly anything. He was clearly an absent father in your life and wouldn't even give you Wi-Fi for God's sakes. Like what's going on with that? That's not a waste of money. That's literally like a utility at this point in today's day and age. Why would you not have that so that people can do their work and actually like participate in society? That's really dumb and just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you don't owe your dad anything. He's being incredibly stupid. And if I was in your shoes, I definitely would not pay that any mind because I think you described him perfectly. He absolutely sounds like a massive man-child that would be super annoying to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to ammythejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to translate for my parents after my brother moved back in and took over my role in the house? Because right now my parents are pissed, but I just really don't care. Because at this point, I'm honestly just so exhausted. Here's what's going on. I'm a 19-year-old female and I'm the only one in my family who is fluent in English. My parents immigrated when I was a baby, and my older brother, who's 22, moved back to our home country when he was about 10 years old to be raised by our grandparents. And he recently moved back in with us after 12 years abroad. For most of my life, I've been the one handling everything for my parents, filling out forms, translating at appointments, reading legal documents, talking to banks, scheduling anything. I've done this since I was about 11 years old and it was exhausting. But honestly, I didn't question it because I knew they needed help. But since my brother came back, things have changed. He speaks decent English now. Not perfect, but enough to help out. Except here's the thing, he doesn't help. He just acts like he's too good for it. And somehow my parents act like he's the golden child. They dote on him, they praise him constantly, and now they only speak to me when they need something. A week ago, they asked me to take time off of work to translate an immigration appointment for my mom. I said that I couldn't because I had a shift I couldn't miss, and I suggested they ask my brother instead. My mom then just said, "Oh, he's not used to this stuff, it's easier with you." And when she said this, I snapped a little. I said to her, "Yeah, because I've been forced to do it for years. I told them I was tired of being treated like a tool just because I happen to speak English better, especially now that they have another adult child living here. My dad told me that I was being ungrateful and that family helps without complaining, and since then they've been completely cold to me. My brother then said I was being dramatic and that it's not his fault that they trust me more, but it's not about trust. It's that they've literally never even asked him. I've missed school, I've missed work, I've even missed social events just to translate for them. Meanwhile, he's been here like 3 months and hasn't lifted a finger. Now, at this point, I do feel guilty. I don't want to abandon them, but I also don't want to keep carrying this alone just because I was born here and he wasn't. So am I the jerk for refusing to be their translator anymore? Because right now I'm honestly so frustrated that I just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I think someone pointed out something hilarious in the comment section, and it's the way your dad said, oh, family helps without complaining. Because if that really is the case, then guess what? The brother can help out and there shouldn't be any complaining. Like seriously, what's going on right now? If they really feel that way, then go to the brother and be like, no, family helps without complaining. We need help translating stuff. Because you're absolutely right. You've done this since you were like, what, 12 years old, 11 years old or something like that? It's obnoxious that they're still making you do that after all these years. So yeah, I think your brother absolutely should be stepping up, and I don't blame you for being like, no, I need a break from this. Because doing this for almost a decade would literally drive just about anybody insane. And for the sake of your own happiness and sanity, I definitely think it's time for your brother to step in. A guy that I'm talking to got arrested on video call with me last night, and even though he's made some mistakes, I still feel like I'm in love with him, but I'm not sure if this is the right move to make or if I'm just being naive. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I met this guy online and we instantly clicked. We've only been talking for a couple of days, but we really connected. We shared trauma, reassured each other, and it felt pretty real. He is my type, he says all the right things, and I honestly feel like I'm falling for this guy. Last night we were supposed to call at about 10 o'clock, but he didn't show until about 1 in the morning. He explained why he was late, and apparently his ex has a restraining order against him, and she saw him at a gas station and ended up calling the cops. He said the restraining order came from a past argument where she got scared and sprayed him with bear spray. When the police showed up, he admitted that he felt like hurting himself and ended up in a psychiatric hold longer than expected due to a name error, and he even has an ankle monitor. I offered to call with him as a distraction, but about an hour in, he said, oh, the police are back, give me a second, and I just said, oh, stay safe, and he said, all right, I love you. Now, we would obviously have never said that before, so I was completely stunned. And at this point, he had already taken out his headphones so he couldn't hear me. Then I saw a cop enter the room, and he came up to the camera and showed the handcuffs and said to me, I'm getting arrested. And I said, oh gosh. And then the cop shut off his PC and the call ended. I found his mugshot and record, and he's being held for violating a domestic no contact order, and is listed as probable cause. And I haven't heard from him ever since this happened. My friends are telling me to run and that this is love bombing or manipulation, but I just don't know. He was open with me about it all, and I genuinely feel worried more than anything. I know it sounds crazy, but I just don't know if I'm being naive. So is it okay that I still care for this guy, or is there something that I need to do? Because right now I feel incredibly lost. Dude, I don't understand people. Seriously, the second I hear that they have like an ankle monitor and they've got a restraining order from their ex after they got bear sprayed by them, like, dude, this is like one red flag after another. Why are you with this guy? Because yeah, your friends are right. This guy's starting the engine of manipulation and you're just like sitting there being like, oh my gosh, I love him so much. He's the right person for me. He understands me. He's saying all the right things. He's my type. It's like, dude, what's your type? Like a criminal? Because that's not a type you want to deal with. This guy's gonna drag you down to the gutter with him and be like, oh, I love you so much. Meanwhile, he's gonna take everything from you. Like, dude, what are we doing here? Your dream guy has a restraining order and an ankle monitor, and he literally got arrested on camera. And the only thing you're thinking about is like, oh man, that's the first time he ever said, I love you. I can't believe it. I'm stunned right now. Instead of watching him literally get tackled to the ground and handcuffed. Like, dude, if I saw that, I'd be like, okay, I don't think this is worth it. See ya. So yeah, you're being very naive. You're absolutely falling for the wrong guy, and you could do way better than this. Because what this guy's offering is absolutely nothing, and this is literally only going to cause you harm. My entitled roommate steals the room I was planning on taking, despite the fact that I was paying extra just to have that room in the first place. So I decided to get some revenge when I moved out by leaving a massive dog turd in the middle of his bed and also putting dead fish in his wardrobe and in the pockets of his suits. Here's how I did it. Many years ago when I was a student, I spent my final year renting a room in a shared house which had about 8 bedrooms, which were each individually rented out by the agency. All of the other people in the house had graduated their the previous year and had stayed in the city and got jobs, so I was the only student. Now, some of them knew each other and some of them didn't. I paid for a larger room on the first floor, but when I came to move in, it had already been taken by someone else who wasn't even there at the moment, so I moved into a smaller room on the ground floor. It was good enough for me and I was happy enough in that room for the year, but here's the kicker. I was paying approximately $40 a month more for the room I wasn't getting. The guy who took the room was hardly ever around, as he had a girlfriend he stayed with, and when he did come in, he went straight to the big room and didn't speak to anybody. I left him notes to ask about him paying the extra money for the room, as he wasn't supposed to be in that one, but he ignored them all and never came to speak to me. It didn't really ruin my year, as I had already been so busy with work and just trying to get my final exams done, but when it came close to time for me to move out, I tried to talk to him again, and he did the classic move where he was like, "I'm just gonna head out, but when I come back, we can sort it out later." And of course, later didn't come, and when the day came for me to leave, he was of course nowhere to be found. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally having a dog crap on his bed. Just one big massive dog turd right in the middle of it. I also put a few smelly fish in his wardrobe and in the pockets of his suits, and I really wish I'd been there to see his face when he got back, which probably was several days later, just to see how he reacted to the smell, because this guy absolutely deserved it. Okay, first of all, I love this revenge. I think it's hilarious in my opinion, but I really hope you were not expected to pay for that room. You quite literally were not staying there. That cost falls on that guy and not you. The original poster basically said that they didn't go to the agency or report the guy because at the time they were only 21 years old and they're just trying to get through their final year in college. And I totally get that, like I really do, but it wouldn't have taken that much time to be like, okay, I'm gonna report this guy and he's absolutely moving out of there. Because if you're the one paying for it, then you deserve to stay there, regardless of what anybody else might have to say. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my brother use my car during his stay, even though he supposedly came up here to help me out after I had a minor knee surgery? Because right now I am very frustrated and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 26-year-old female and I recently had minor knee surgery. This was not super serious, but enough to make it difficult just to get around. I live alone in an apartment about 30 minutes from the city center. My older brother offered to come stay with me for a week to help out while I recover. He lives about 4 hours away and we don't see each other super often, so I thought this was a really kind gesture. When he arrived, he asked if he could use my car here and there, and I said sure, assuming it would be for errands or picking things up for the apartment. But almost immediately, he started using it constantly, meeting up with friends, going to the gym, shopping, and just driving around to clear his head. I found myself stuck at home, limited in what I could do, and twice had to order takeout because he wasn't around when I needed help grabbing something. He also never asked before taking the car, and I noticed the gas was running low really quickly, and despite that, he still hasn't even filled it once. Well, yesterday I told him I didn't feel comfortable with him using the car like this. I reminded him that he came under the pretense of helping me, not using this as a free week with my car. He then got super upset and said I was being ungrateful and that he took time off of work to be here and was doing his absolute best, and since I can't even drive right now, it shouldn't be a big deal. Well, he's barely said a word to me ever since then. I mentioned the situation to our mom and she sided with him, saying that I'm being dramatic and that I should be appreciative since he made the effort to come along. But the thing is, if he had just told me up front, oh, I want to come and stay for a week and use your car to get around, I still probably would have said no. I feel like he misrepresented his intentions, and now I'm the one stuck feeling like an inconvenience in my own apartment. So seriously, am I the jerk for putting my foot down about my car? Because right now I'm seriously still pissed off. No, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your brother is taking advantage of you and that is not fair. Seriously, this guy is running around all over the place and the gas is getting low and he's using the car to drive around just to clear his head. It's like, dude, what are you doing? That's not helping me in the slightest. If you need to drive around to clear your head, then you clearly are not the person for the job and taking care of me. Like, you had knee surgery, dude. You can't do anything right now. And this guy's trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go, drive and clear my head or go to the gym and hang out with friends and all this other crap. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. I would have told him straight up, I'm sorry, this is not working and I think you need to go home. Because obviously he is not here to take care of you, and that really sucks in my opinion. An entitled idiot used my email address in a store that literally I had nothing to do with. So I decided to get some petty revenge by setting up an account behind their back and spending all of their loyalty reward points on cat treats. Here's what happened. Back in 2021, I started getting random emails from Tractor Supply asking me to rate my order. Now, I'm in the United Kingdom, so I had no clue what Tractor Supply was, but a it turns out that they're in the United States and they don't even sell tractors. When the first email arrived, I thought it was probably a mistake. The customer making the purchase at Tractor Supply may have just given the wrong email address at checkout. I got in very early with Gmail, so my email address is very simple. It's understandable someone might have just made a mistake once or twice, but the emails kept coming. The simple solution would have been just to block the Tractor Supply emails. But I was feeling a little bit more petty, especially in exchange for using my email address to send spam to. Well, it turns out I could create a Tractor Supply account on the website, even though I don't live in the United States. And when I created the account with my email address, it connected my new account with the in-store loyalty profile this idiot has been using my email address for. I could see the full history of all their in-store purchases, from dog collars to cement, etc. When you make a purchase at Tractor Supply, you get points back on your loyalty account that you can then use to activate a reward. Well, the perpetrator was waiting until they reached enough points to get a $10 discount off of their next purchase. One of the other rewards you can buy with loyalty points is a voucher for a bag of cat treats. So now every time I get an email from Tractor Supply about a new purchase, I log into my account and I exchange my newly assigned loyalty points with a voucher for a bag of cat treats. The account currently has 8 accrued vouchers, and it's now turned into a game of how many cat treat vouchers can I get before they notice. I don't know how it works in store or if there's a limit on how many you can have, but I'm secretly hoping on a future purchase, the perpetrator is then asked if they want their 20 free bags of cat treats added to their order, and only then will they finally realize that they probably shouldn't have used a random petty stranger's email address, because this clearly is not going to work out for them. Okay, I love this because this really is a unique way of getting revenge on someone, because yeah, I totally get it. Some people just make the mistake and they're like, okay, I didn't mean to put in the wrong email address, but here we are anyways. But even then, I just think it's so funny that you could literally go through the trouble of making an email address and just screwing with all of their loyalty reward points. That's hilarious if you ask me, and I love the fact that you did this, especially without them knowing. Because if they don't have a cat, then my God, they're going to be very confused when they try to redeem any kind of reward. Am I overreacting after my husband's boss refused to return my partner's $40,000 in tools after he quit? Because even though the police are involved and we literally tried to handle this as respectfully as possible, we still are facing no resolution of any kind, leaving me and my husband in a weird situation as he literally can't do his job without these tools in his life. Here's what's going on. So my partner recently quit his job after months of tension and disrespect from his boss. He was constantly belittled, being told things like, oh, you're a 1-year red seal, or I just don't need the attitude, and having his professional input dismissed in favor of random opinions from others. The breaking point came when the boss brought in some marketing people who owns a franchise, so you'd think the parent company would handle this, who were filming TikToks and spreading misinformation. My partner calmly corrected something that was wrong, and the boss flew off the handle, saying he was being disrespectful in front of staff. He told my partner to take the day off, and my partner said, if this is a fight, I quit, and the boss just doubled down, telling him to take the whole week off. So my partner quit clearly and calmly. Before leaving, he told the boss he'd be back at the end of the day for his tools. He separated the shop stuff from his own and locked up his personal toolbox, which holds about $40,000 worth of tools. This is his career and his livelihood. After he left, the boss started texting him. He was saying things like, I'm sorry, I really care, and then immediately started reaching out to a mutual friend, trying to get my phone number, even getting upset when they wouldn't give it to him because I had said no. But we stayed firm in the text messages. We're coming today for the tools, and this is not optional. It's how our family survives. We have 2 kids and I'm disabled and not working after nearly dying from an infection after giving birth. I had what's called sepsis, and this really messed up my leg and left me unable to work. These tools aren't just expensive, they are literally everything. We then called the non-emergency police line to have someone there to keep the peace, and the officer saw the text messages, including the boss admitting the tools were my partner's and agreeing to a pickup time. But when we arrived, the boss suddenly refused to let him in. The front desk staff gave the office the wrong number to the boss's rep, so we had to provide the actual number ourselves. The rep, apparently a relative, said that my partner wasn't allowed on the property anymore. They literally are just playing games at this point. The police officer, who was honestly great, said the whole thing was incredibly stupid, but his hands are tied and told us to call again the next day. So now we're sitting here, still without the tools after trying to handle everything respectfully. We didn't escalate, we just want his stuff back. So am I overreacting by feeling completely violated frustrated and furious that they're holding his tools hostage like this. Should he be allowed to just leave his business during the hours and just, I don't know, decide when my husband gets to work? Because right now I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do. You're not overreacting. If anything, you're underreacting. This guy is literally holding your tools hostage, and in my opinion, it's time to up the ante. And I'm not telling you what to do. Like, I can only speak for myself, but if I was in your shoes, I would immediately start looking for a lawyer, because what's happening right now is completely unacceptable. Like, this is not only unprofessional, but it's also like them literally stealing from you and your husband. But also, if I can be completely blunt with your husband, why on earth would he ever leave that place without getting those tools first? If that really cost him $40,000 to have, and he can't do his job without them, why would he ever be like, I'll pick him up later? Especially if he knows how toxic these people are. His workplace is clearly volatile. Like, what's going on right now? Talk about a lapse in judgment. Like, that was really not a smart thing for him to do. He should have taken the tools with him and run out the door. Like, don't even pretend like they're gonna let you back in. Because look at what's happening, dude. These people suck. They're trying to hold those tools and be like, oh, you can't come in here ever again. Sorry, can't let you in. And of course the cops are like, I can't do anything. I mean, just call back tomorrow, I guess. Because this is insane in my opinion. He even tried to get the original poster's phone number just to berate them and be like, I really do care. I'm sorry. Like, this is some crazy behavior, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would take it to the next level to make sure I get back what is rightfully mine. Because the way they're acting right now is completely unfair, and you and your family do not deserve this in the slightest.
My coworker keeps stealing my tools, so I weld his tools to the ceiling. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. First off, I'd like to say that this was my father's story and not mine, but it's one of his best. A little backstory to get you caught up. My father was a welder at a pulp and paper mill on maintenance with a union. There were around 500 people who worked here at the time, mid to late 80s. On my dad's crew, there was a man they called Squirrel, because he would take anything small enough to carry and take it home. Some of the things were specialized tools made for a certain machine, and they would have to be ordered in again at the company's expense. I guess there wasn't much the mill could do, because somehow the union backed him. It wasn't long before my father's tools started going missing. He knew where to look and found them in Squirrel's toolbox and some scattered on his workbench. Squirrel was an average-sized man, around 5'9" to 5'10", but my father was a huge man, standing at 6'5" and around 250 pounds. So Squirrel didn't say a word. He was too scared to. My father reported this to the union rep in the main office and was told they would investigate. Squirrel was given 1 week paid suspension while the investigation went on. They found many of the missing things in his locker, lunchbox, toolbox, etc. Somehow, he got the union to back him again and was allowed to come back to work at the end of his suspension. My father grabbed his mobile welder and went into Squirrel's area and welded together a giant metal box. He took everything he could identify as Squirrel's, put it in the box, and welded a top on top of it. He then got the help of one of his coworker buddies to lift the box, and Dad welded it to the bottom of the I-beam on the ceiling, about 20 feet in the air. The day Squirrel came back, he was looking for all his things, but couldn't find anything. He asked everyone he could, but no one said a word except, I take care of my tools, maybe you should take better care of yours. This went on for a couple hours until Squirrel went into the main office to complain, saying someone stole everything of his. The shop steward and Squirrel walked into the maintenance shop to ask people in there where his things were. Dad stood up and walked up close, and knowing him, he was towering over Squirrel and said something along the lines of, Squirrels like to climb to store their stuff. Are you sure you didn't climb the I-beam and put your stuff up there? I guess the look of, oh no, on the shop steward's face was almost too good. But the look of pure horror on Squirrel's face was my dad's favorite part of this story. He would laugh just as hard at every telling when he got to this part. Squirrel went into his work area and looked up. He saw the box up there. He tried to get anyone's help to get it down, but everyone seemed to have important things to do and couldn't help at the moment. Squirrel took a day and a half of working alone to get his things from the box and to remove the box from where it was welded. My father said not a thing ever went missing again, and Squirrel worked there another 10 years or more until the mill was shut down. I can say I believe him, because one night at his place, I got drunk and was thinking about going home. He went to the basement and made a little box and welded my keys in it. I got them back the next day. I miss my father and his stories of messing with jerks. It sounds like this guy had at least this coming. It's stories like these that make me really hate unions sometimes. You get workers you really don't want to have to deal with, like this guy just stealing everyone's stuff, and somehow they're still allowed to keep their job. In some cases, unions do a lot of good work, but in cases like this, they just end up keeping the crappy employee around, and everyone has to deal with him. Still, I'm sure this guy won't go around stealing anyone's stuff again. Not if he's gonna lose a day and a half of work trying to get his own stuff back. A girl at my gym accuses me of taking pictures of her and insists I show her my phone to prove my innocence. I'm at the gym today and I'm walking towards an empty squat rack. 10 feet in front of and 1 feet to the right of my rack is another rack that a girl, Belinda, 20, is doing squats on. While walking up, I briefly notice that her leggings are see-through, and when she bends down in her squats, you can easily see she's also not wearing underwear. That's not my business. That's her choice. But it made me uncomfortable to take a rack that was kinda behind her. I had been waiting my entire gym session for one of these racks to open up, and this was my last lift before leaving, so I went ahead and took it. I went through my workout as normal. After every set, I check my phone for 5 to 20 seconds. I track every single set for every single lift in a spreadsheet to note how much I lifted and for how many reps. Sometimes I need to remind myself what I did last week to make sure I'm progressing. Sometimes I'm just checking the time. Sometimes I'm changing the song on my Spotify. Tonight specifically, there was a very important basketball game playing, so I wanted to keep up with the score. So I used my phone a lot at the gym. I finished my third set when Belinda turns around and walks up to me with her phone up yelling, "What the heck are you doing? You perv, stop taking pictures of me." I'm caught completely off guard, but I explain that I'm just taking notes on what I'm lifting, that I'm not paying attention to her at all. She's being extra loud, so other people are starting to look at us. Plus, she's recording me, and she demands I go through my pictures and videos to show her what I was recording, and I delete the ones I took of her. I try to again explain I didn't record anything of her at all. She's yelling that I have nothing to hide, so I should have no problem showing her. So I insist on going to gym management. Once at the front, we both explain our stories. She's still recording. The normal gym attendee asks me if I'm willing to show her, a neutral third party, my pictures and videos. She also says if I have nothing to hide, it's not a big deal and we can squash it right now. I refuse. I have my own uncensored pictures in there, plus those of my girlfriend. I'm not gonna let anyone force me to show them my pictures for some bullcrap. I do show her my spreadsheet, which shows it's been revised over 15 times in the past 50 minutes. So that proves what I was using my phone for. That was received well, but they still expected me to prove my innocence. I told them they need to review the cameras. Apparently, only the manager has access to them, so I was told he'd call me before the end of the night, in about an hour. My girlfriend tells me I should have just let them look at my phone, because she doesn't mind and it would have cleared this all up. But I mind. I get that someone wouldn't want someone taking pictures of them, but violating my privacy to prove I wasn't taking pictures of you crosses a line for me. Am I a jerk for not wanting to show some random stranger photos on my phone? No, you handled this the right way. You're not obligated to show your phone, and if you were in fact taking pictures of her, there should be some hint of that on the cameras. And you also said that you have private pictures of yourself on your phone. The last thing you want is being forced to open up your phone and she sees that picture and then starts claiming some other form of sexual harassment saying you made her look at it. I think you handled the situation the best you could. But honestly, don't wear see-through pants and no underwear at the gym. Trust me, I don't want to be staring at your pooter. Our vacationing family and friends seems to think that we're a free B&B. Some short backstory, we used to live in a different country but moved to Europe. And since then, we've gotten so many freeloaders from our old life coming here for free accommodation. Our home is currently a large 5-bedroom house on a farm in the mountains. It's a small town in the middle of Europe, so it's super peaceful, but we're still close enough to the capital city and other hubs. We used to live in a big city in another country, and still have a lot of family and friends there. We've been here for close to 20 years now, and in those first few years, we'd get a steady stream of people coming to stay with us on the pretext, "It's so good to see you again." I'm not kidding. Between June and the end of August, we'd have one group leave and another arrive. Hospitality being what it is, we never asked these people to pay for their stay, and they never offered. The first year was bearable, but after 3 or 4 years of this, we're over it. These freeloading leeches had other family and friends within a few hours of us, and we heard from some of these people that these freeloaders planned their European itinerary according to where they could stay and eat for free, constantly abusing our culture of hospitality. About 3 or 4 years into being a free B&B, news got back to us about how cheap we are. We're a family of 5, so when you get another family that comes in, that's a whole lot of mouths to feed. Often we'd cook up a large pot of meat and vegetable stew with homemade bread or a large roast. We'd also try to take our guests to a local attraction. So imagine when the news gets back to you that we crammed their whole family into one room, gave them crappy food, and took them to boring places. There were also complaints by some that they left our house hungry. One family went as far as to have lost a valuable piece of digital gear and accused my kids of stealing it. They later found the device in the car of another friend, but didn't bother apologizing for the accusations. Not all of our out-of-town guests were bad though. There are the ones that have been invited to come back. The rest have never been invited back, and if they do call, we ask if we can make them a reservation at a local hotel. I'm so sick of kicking one or more of my kids out of their rooms to accommodate choosing beggars, and then have their crap all over my house. They take all your hospitality and expect more, then have the nerve to complain that you don't offer enough food, or that we don't have the right drinks or snacks, and that it's boring here. Needless to say, ever since we're no longer available as a free destination, we're the ones being called cheapskates by choosing beggars who come to Europe and not pay a single night's accommodation in a hotel because they look for suckers to take them in for free. We don't care though, as long as those jerks don't come here. If someone's letting you stay at their place for free and they're feeding you and taking you places, you don't turn around and talk crap about them the second you leave. They are not obligated to do any of that, and they're still choosing to do it to try and let you have a nice vacation. At their expense, I might add. Don't be a jerk. Accept what they're offering you. Take it with a smile, and enjoy your time there. Be happy they're even letting you stay at all. My housemate forced me to pay her rent for a month, so I made her life that much more awful. So there I was, newly arrived in the city of Portland. I was excited to start apartment hunting, and was crashing with a friend of mine in the meantime. After some searching, I came upon a house with a rent amount of $500. Neato. I'll call the number and get interviewed. The girl I chatted with sounded really nice, and we clicked on a lot of things. She said she hates drugs, has 2 dogs, is ultra clean, and just a whole host of other things I like in a person. I checked out the apartment and it was spotless. The dogs were absolutely adorable. She seemed cool and clear-cut. Man, was I in for a good time. The day I moved in, everything changed. I unpacked everything, plugged in my computer, and asked if she had any Wi-Fi. I don't know what that is. I was a little shocked, but whatever, I explained it to her. She laughed, saying how the internet is for nerds, and she personally never uses it. I saw the ad for the apartment online, by the way. Okay, that was a little weird, but whatever, I'll get an internet connection. I wake up and notice that there is dog poop on the floor of the living room. I tell her, and she gets ticked. Starts yelling like crazy at the dogs and locks them up in their cages as punishment. They're constantly locked in her room for seriously like 20 hours at a time. It's absolutely ridiculous. She tends to beat them on occasion too, because she's gotta be a terrible human being in all regards, I guess. There was poop on the floor every single day. Anyways, none of my business. I love dogs, but those ain't my dogs and I'm not telling someone how to raise them. The final straw was when this supposedly drug-free woman invited her friends over to snort a bunch of powder. When I asked her about it, she said, "No, dude, cocaine is pretty much on the same level as alcohol and weed. Don't be such a nerd." Rent is due, so I ask if she's paying with a check or something. She says she currently doesn't have any money, but if I cover a couple months of rent, she'll pay me back. Every red flag on planet Earth is waving in my head. Heck no, I ain't about that life. Luckily, I hadn't signed anything when I moved in, because I guess she didn't understand how that stuff works. So I begin my plan of escape. I call the police and SPCA. I let the police know that she's having another druggie party on a particular day. I let the SPCA know of the absolute filth the dogs go through. I also let the police know about that. I called up my friends and let him know I was crashing at his place again and I would give him $100 if he helped me transport my stuff. It was the perfect plan. She came into my room in the morning wondering if I was planning on leaving. My heart was racing, but I was like, nah dude, this place is awesome. She left for work. To this day, I still don't know what she did for a living, and this was the same exact day as the druggie party. I called my bud and he helped me transport my stuff. I was out of there. I changed my phone number, deleted my email address, and pretty much became invisible to her. A few months later, I called a private investigator and paid her $100 to find out everything she knew about my awful housemate. I was pretty worried about those doggos. I learned the following. She was arrested and charged for intent to distribute drugs. Apparently, she had a huge amount of drugs that I didn't know about, along with other drug-related charges. She was charged with some kind of animal abuse. She was no longer living at that address due to an eviction, and she's currently serving time in prison. Sometimes jerks get what they deserve, and life is good. This really does sound like the roommate from Hades. Like our original poster said, there's so many red flags going off here. Just from the little bit I've gained from what our original poster has told us about their roommate, I'm having a hard time understanding the way that their mind seems to work. No internet, snow isn't a drug, and all kinds of other things that just don't really add up. The rules she laid out when you were moving in are not the rules she lives by at all. It really seems like she was just putting up a front to get you in and try to get you to pay the rent for a couple months. I'm sure that's gotta be illegal in some way, but hey, she's already in prison, so that job's taken care of. I kicked my brother and his entitled pregnant girlfriend out of my house after she threw away my food. I, 27-year-old male, live alone. My brother, 21-year-old male, and his girlfriend, 19-year-old female, still live with our parents as they can't afford a place of their own. His girlfriend is currently 4 months pregnant with him. My brother asked to bring his girlfriend for dinner in order to catch up, and I said sure, why not? However, the moment she entered my house, she started complaining about the smell of steak I was making, and just said the smell alone makes her nauseous, and she can't eat this. I tried to suggest an alternative, but she was dead set on Chinese food, and ended up sending my brother to the nearest mall in order to get her some. I thought that would be the end of it, but after going to the bathroom and coming back, I caught her throwing my unfinished steak into the garbage. I asked her what the heck she was doing, and she said the smell was so strong she thought she'd end up throwing up on the floor, and she needed to get rid of it. Then she started spraying a perfume from her purse in my kitchen. I was beyond furious at this point and sent her back to the living room. And after my brother came back from the mall, I kicked both of them out with their Chinese food. My brother tried to convince me to let them back and that I could make something else for the two of us, and his girlfriend was pretty much sobbing at this point. But I was dead set on kicking them both out. However, my parents ended up being mad at me for apparently causing so much distress to my brother's pregnant girlfriend. I told them that she literally threw away our dinner, but they said I shouldn't have yelled at her or kicked them out, as she's still just a teenager who's now getting influenced by her pregnancy hormones, and that my outburst also caused problems in their relationship, since she ended up sending my brother to sleep on the couch that night, even though he literally defended her against me as well. So I have no clue how this is my fault. Am I the jerk for apparently not having enough tact to deal with a pregnant teenager? I'm not gonna lie, she's probably a whirlwind to have to deal with at this point. It sounds like maybe you weren't quite sure what you were getting into. And I don't blame you, I wouldn't have expected this either. It's incredibly entitled behavior to assume that everyone is gonna bow to your whim just because you're pregnant. I get all the stuff about cravings and certain smells making you nauseous. I get that. Up till then, we were okay. But as soon as you start throwing out someone's food, now we have a problem. There were a whole bunch of other ways you could have dealt with that. You could have just put it in the fridge instead of throwing away someone's perfectly good steak all because the smell is bothering you. You're in someone else's home. That behavior is purely disrespectful, pregnant or not. My girlfriend refuses to uphold a family tradition because she says it's sexist. I have a big family that's incredibly close. We have big family dinners every few months where we all meet at my great-grandfather's estate and eat together. Typically, how this works is that the women go cook for the time they're there and the men don't. Which I'm fully aware it's very sexist. That being said, I'm one of the youngest people in my family, and my protests mean literally nothing. Some of those women chose not to cook. However, this is usually met with a level of ostracizing. The women who don't cook are wives and long-term girlfriends, so they kinda already have a good family relationship doctored in. When I've seen new partners not cook, it's gone bad. Like completely ostracized, not speaking, cattiness, rudeness, the whole shebang. This dinner will be in 2 weeks, and my girlfriend was asked if she would attend. Initially, she said yes, which is great. I want for her to meet everyone and for everyone to get used to her being around. But when I explained to her the tradition, she was understandably bothered. I told her that I understood where she was coming from. However, it was best for everyone if she just played along. I told her this isn't a permanent thing, and that I'm only asking her to do this so she can avoid bad treatment from the rest of the family. This is her first impression, and I don't think it's best if we cause waves. She told me that it's unacceptable, and that if she has to do that, she won't be going. I've tried to find a compromise with her on this, but she won't budge, and now she's ticked off at me. She told me that if I think it's acceptable to make her do this, I'm just as bad as everyone else. While my point is that she needs to make a good first impression. Am I the jerk? For this one, yes. Clear cut, you're being the jerk. It's very clearly a sexist tradition. You've even acknowledged it yourself. It sounds like it's almost a rite of passing or something. A test if they're going to be eligible to join the family. It's really demeaning. The tradition has to end sometime. Why not with your girlfriend? Guy brags about banging my ex-girlfriend, so I make sure he never drives again. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I'm a regular at a bar. I don't have family, my roommate was out of town, so I went to the bar. I was having a good night. Then this jerk showed up. Now, this jerk and I don't have a lot of history in mind. I was dating a girl 3 years ago, she cheated on me, I broke up with her. The whole relationship lasted all of a month. In my mind, that was the end of it. Things happen, move on. The person she cheated on me with was this jerk. Now, this jerk is a weird person. I don't harbor any ill will. This guy, however, ran in very vaguely the same circles as me. He would see me at a bar or a party occasionally and make it a point to say, "I screwed that guy's girlfriend." Occasionally, it was a party host saying, "Hey, that guy's worried about you fighting him." Or at a bar, "Dude, you gonna kick that guy's butt? Cause he's asking people to have his back." I had zero interest in this guy. I gave not a single crap about him. I just wanted to have a drink and have fun. What was weird about it is that he always introduced himself and acted like he remembered me from somewhere. I'd be like, "Yeah, you banged Jennifer." "Oh, how is she?" "We stopped dating, you know, after you banged her." "Oh, well, good talk." And the smug prick would pat me on the shoulder. This was pretty annoying. I dated this girl for all of a month. It didn't even blip on my radar as a serious relationship. Except this guy would show up every now and then and remind me he banged a girl I was dating. So I'm in this bar, I'm hanging out with some vets, swapping war stories, and here comes this jerk. He goes, "Hey, I know you from..." I say, "Dude, not now. I'm in the middle of a story. Screw off for a bit." I finished my story and he came back and said, "I know you from somewhere." "Yeah, you screwed Jennifer. I honestly don't give a crap. It was like 3 years ago." He left. The owner and the bartender were around me. The owner said, "So do you hate that guy?" I told him the story. He goes, "Are you going anywhere soon?" After that question, heck no. The bartender was ticked because the dude was always grabbing her. The owner hated him because he was a drunk driving jerk. At the bar, you don't drive drunk. The owner has a policy that if you need to get home, they'll pay for a cab if you pay it back the next time you're in. If you're stone broke, you get a cab home. Just pay it back when you can. And he will call the police on you if you try to drive drunk. That dude does not tolerate that crap. This guy had a history of driving drunk from that bar. The bartender went back and made a phone call. and I drank a few beers. I was promised a show and I'd wait. The guy left and shook my hand. The smug prick even patted me on the shoulder and said, "Say hi to Jen." He pulled out and there were flashing lights. The bartender called the non-emergency line and said there was a repeat DUI offender at the bar, and they sent a non-marked car to hang out in the parking lot. This is his charge as a third-time offender. 120 days to 11 months, 29 days in jail, $1,100 to $10,000 in mandatory fines, license revocation for 6 to 10 years, no restricted license available, subject to vehicle seizure or forfeiture, alcohol and drug treatment program. Judge could order an ignition interlock device installed at your expense. If 2 convictions of DUI in 5 years, ignition interlock device required for 6 months after installment at your expense. That jerk was never driving again. Merry Christmas to me. This guy is the definition of a smug prick. Like, I hate him just from reading this story. Like, dude, you're the only one who cares that you screwed a girl that I was dating 3 years ago. I didn't even really care. That's why we broke up. You didn't accomplish something. You didn't ruin my life. Stop acting like you're some big shot. You're just an annoying jerk. I tried to warn a customer not to dispute his no-show charge with the bank, but they never listen. I work at a big brand name hotel in a beach town. In the summer, our rates skyrocket to almost $300 a night, and we're usually sold out. Someone booked 2 rooms for a long weekend and decided not to show or bother calling to cancel. Our no-show policy is pretty standard. 1 night's cost for each room you booked. This gentleman was charged over $500 for his 2 no-show rooms. It sucks, and it's a lot of money, but it's 100% his fault. The gentleman called me a couple weeks later when he got his credit card bill. I explained to him our policy and that he wouldn't be getting a refund. He went off. "You don't know who you're messing with. I'm not paying you, idiot." Yada yada yada. Eventually, he told me he was just going to dispute it with his credit card company. This is basically what I said to him. "Sir, if you want to dispute the charge with your bank, you have every right to do that. I wouldn't personally recommend it though. If this was a case of a stolen credit card, I'd agree with you, but we have documentation showing you were informed of the no-show policy. However, if you wish to pass this issue along to the bank, I'll gladly deal with them. When you dispute a charge, the bank will front you the money while they investigate." When he got money from the bank right after he filed a dispute, he called me to gloat. He told me how stupid I was, yada yada. What I don't think he understood is that the money is pretty much a loan under the assumption that his charges really were fraudulent, which they weren't. I easily won the dispute, proving that he willfully did purchase these rooms and was informed of the no-show policy. Then the bank billed him back for the money they fronted him. He called me again. Lucky me. He told me that the bank was billing him and I had to pay it. He said because it all started with my hotel, it was our responsibility to pay his bank bill. At this point, I didn't even know what to say anymore. I just said, "No, have a good day," and hung up. Down the road, he called again, saying that his credit card company was threatening to turn over the bill to collections if he didn't pay. Now he wanted us to pay $800 because of the interest. I told him that his personal finances are his own business and to stop calling. I tried to warn that jerk from the beginning. I gotta agree with our original poster on this one. It's all on the dude for not showing up or at least calling to cancel the rooms. Maybe he just forgot about the reservation or something. But either way, that's not your problem. Because he didn't show up, you guys weren't able to rent those rooms out to someone else. The hotel lost money. He made an obligation to take those rooms and he didn't take them. Of course there's gonna be a no-show charge. You should know what the price is gonna be. My manager was an awful person to me, so I got her fired in the most embarrassing way. Years ago, shortly after I graduated high school, I got a new job to support myself during college. The new gig was in a pet store, and I was working in the department that sold the fish, aquariums, reptiles, and birds. The store manager was an awesome guy, who I'll call Kurt. Kurt was an old school guy. He went to work, worked hard, and went home. That's all he expected out of you as well. My immediate manager over my department was this large snaggletooth witch of a woman I'll call Stephanie. We got off to a bad start because she quickly found out that I knew more about reptiles than her. She preferred the fish, whereas I had kept snakes for the past 4 to 5 years. Her ego couldn't handle a fresh employee not needing her guidance. From then on, she was terrible to me. She singled me out to clean the goldfish tanks, and had the other employees cover sales every day I worked. She would say rude things to me, such as, "You're the weak link in my team. You're the reason I'm having problems in this department." Fast forward about a year, and my hours have been cut by about 25%. I asked the store manager what the deal was, and he told me that our department had lost too much money between lack of sales and broken merchandise. This puzzled me, but I didn't think much of it because everybody's hours were cut. Simultaneously, myself and a few coworkers had noticed something strange. Stephanie had recently taken much more interest in the customers. She insisted on helping certain customers and sending us to do busy work while they were there. A customer came in one evening and was talking to us about how nice Stephanie is. Turns out, Stephanie was breeding mice and selling them to customers outside of the store. We found out she was breeding all of her animals, her dogs, turtles, and mice, and selling them to customers she met through our store. Not only was this taking business from us, our store had a couple corporate policies. We did not feed nor sell mice as live food for snakes, and we donated a lot of time and money to shelters, and we condemned breeding dogs and cats for sales. Stephanie was making more money by selling animals to the customers, all while her department had hours cut for all of its employees. It didn't quite make sense how this was costing us so much money, until one evening I thought I had figured it out. Stephanie was an otherwise lazy woman, but when one of her customers came in, she was by their side the whole time. I watched closely as she followed a customer around, helping them pick out a cart full of expensive aquarium decorations and terrarium supplies, like lights and bulbs. I followed and wrote down every single item she grabbed. I wanted to see where this went. She directed the customer to a register and went to check them out. She's lazy and would never do this for any other customers. I noted the time and went back to work. I later spoke to other cashiers about Stephanie checking customers out, and they said that she only ever rang up certain customers, and she acted weird when they did. They suspected she was abusing coupons for them or applying hefty discounts. I got my coworkers to corroborate my story about the under-the-table animal sales and suspicious behavior, and I went to talk to Kurt. I handed him a paper with about 20 UPCs and the time written on it, and I said, "I think if you look up a transaction from Register 2 at this time last night, you'll find a large discount applied to it. These are the items I would expect you to find on that transaction." He was a bit puzzled, and I explained everything to him. I told him I didn't want to make any accusations before because I wasn't sure. But after seeing her in action, I was pretty sure something was going on. He thanked me and assured me he would look into it. A couple weeks later, I was at work and I noticed Kurt was standing near the door watching closely. It just so happens Stephanie was coming in for her shift right about that time. The second she walked through the door, he called her over to his office. Apparently waiting in his office was a regional manager from corporate. He looked at the list I gave him and looked up transactions from the night before. He found one at the exact time I wrote, but it only had about half of the items I listed. But every item that was on that receipt was on the list I gave him. This prompted him to watch her for a few weeks, and in that time frame, they found her to be taking her customers around shopping, personally taking them up to the register and scanning every other item and putting the expensive stuff into the cart without ringing it up. In that time span, she had given away over $1,500 in merchandise. And he looked back at the logs we keep for broken merchandise that is written off and found an excessive amount of aquarium supplies and decorations that were signed off by her. It was something like 1,000% more written off broken merchandise than was found at the same time last quarter. All in all, she was charged with stealing and defrauding the store of over $3,500 in merchandise. And it just so happened that Kurt had already arranged for police to meet them after firing her to escort her out. I don't know if she went to jail, but I did watch her get walked out by police with about 20 employees staring. I wish I could have said something, but I had to settle for her making eye contact with me as she walked out, at which point I gave that jerk a quick wink. Goes to show when someone's a jerk in one aspect, they're most likely a jerk in other aspects as well. I don't know how she didn't think she would get caught eventually. You can't be just giving away merchandise for free and writing it off. That's gonna add up over time. Maybe you can get away with doing this once or twice, but doing it for regular customers, you're just asking for trouble. Now she has this on her record and is gonna have a really hard time finding a job anywhere else. I really hope it was worth saving those random people a few bucks. Jerk of a businessman forgets his wallet in my bar, so I go out of my way to make sure he gets it back. In the early 2000s, I worked at an Irish pub on 2nd Avenue and 9th Street in Manhattan. We were used to seeing Midwestern men on a business trip announce, "I'll get the bill, this one's on me," only to regret it when they get the bill and realize that drinks in Manhattan don't cost the same as their local dive bar. The cast of our story today is Ohio businessman, waitress, and me. So this group of guys comes in and starts ordering beers. One guy, Ohio businessman, announces loudly, "Order whatever you want, this tab's on me." So they rack up a tab of around $400 in just over 3 hours. When the bill is brought to Ohio businessman, he starts yelling about being overcharged. "There's no way this is our bill. We didn't drink this much." I approach the table to try and help. Me. What seems to be the problem? "This woman's trying to overcharge us. She's trying to charge us for extra drinks." "What's the problem on the bill?" "Well, first of all, there's 6 shots on the bill. We never had any shots." "Sir, there are 6 empty shot glasses on the table." "Okay, maybe we had the shots, but there's no way we drank this many beers." "Sir, there are 6 of you. You've been here for over 3 hours. At that rate, this bill says you and your friends averaged 1 beer every 45 minutes. The Ohio businessman seems a little flustered. His friends offer to pay, but he chimes in, "No, I'll pay." So he pays and tips $7.37 because this would make his expense report total out to the closest to $10. After this, the waitress comes up to me to tell me he left his wallet in the booth. She's shaking. She tells me she wants to chuck it in the trash. I tell her to hand it to me. I'll take care of this. I take the driver's license out of the wallet, put it on top, and rubber band the lot. Keep in mind, this is government-issued ID, free postage. I walk up the street and drop it in a USPS box. The Ohio businessman comes back asking about his wallet. I tell him what I did. He goes off on me about, "What am I supposed to do for money? My hotel key was in there." He even threatened to call the police, to which I responded, "For what? Going out of my way to make sure your belongings made it back to you?" He kept going on about how he had no money, no hotel key, no cards for the rest of his visit. I know he left before it ever occurred for him to ask how he would get on that flight home. Welcome to New York City, jerk. I really don't like this story. I think our original poster is way more of an entitled jerk than the Ohio businessman ever was. He wasn't being a jerk. He'd had a few drinks and wasn't paying attention to how much was being ordered and how much each item costs. Yeah, he's gonna be a little bit surprised when the bill comes. But I get that you guys feel that you were shortchanged on the tip. But honestly, that's the problem with tip culture in general. You shouldn't be getting mad at the customer for not tipping well. You should be angry with your employer for not paying you a living wage to begin with. This guy just got screwed on his bill and really can't afford to rack it up anymore. We've all been there, so I can't really hate him too much for having to cut the tip a little short. I can, however, hate employers who want to pay their employees less than minimum wage and just have their customers cover the difference. It's a stupid system that leaves employees feeling this way about customers who don't tip well. You just screwed this guy over for the rest of his business trip because your employer doesn't want to pay you enough money. That's not fair to him, no matter what way you put it. I told my sister that she can't bring my niece and nephew to my birthday dinner if she can't keep them under control. My sister, Angel, claims to use hands-off parenting with my niece, Sophia, and nephew, Parker. In actuality, Angel is entirely permissive and refuses to discipline them. She expects other adults to step in when Sophia and Parker's behavior is getting out of hand. For this reason, I asked Angel to get a babysitter for Sophia and Parker if she wanted to attend my 27th birthday. I love Sophia and Parker as their aunts, and at the time, I wanted a peaceful evening to celebrate my birthday instead of dealing with Sophia and Parker's behavior. because I know Angel isn't going to discipline them. Angel acted understanding when I made this request and explained my reasons to her in person. But then she went online and made a Facebook post accusing me of hating Sophia and Parker and trying to punish Angel by inviting our sister Jessica's kid Megan to my birthday dinner. Never mind that Megan is 17 and is practically an adult herself. Several of our relatives and mutual acquaintances called me out and said I was a jerk and was excluding a 10 and 7-year-old. I responded to Angel's post by sharing 2 videos of Sophia and Parker misbehaving while Angel did nothing. The first video was a recording taken by Megan, where Sophia and Parker were throwing tantrums and yelling at her. Megan was trying to calm Sophia and Parker down while Angel was on her tablet ignoring the situation. The other video was one that Angel took. Sophia and Parker were yelling, throwing toys at each other, and Parker even called his sister a bad word. Angel was laughing as if it were funny, and was again doing nothing to discipline Sophia or Parker. I wrote alongside the videos that I love Sophia and Parker as their aunts, but at the same time, I want a peaceful evening to celebrate my birthday. I don't want to be stuck disciplining Sophia and Parker because clearly Angel won't. Angel ended up not coming to my birthday at all. My parents told me I was in the wrong for sharing those videos, because everyone's children have acted up, and posting those videos didn't accomplish anything besides embarrassing Angel. They also said I should have compromised by having a nobody under 18 rule for my birthday dinner. Megan would not be able to attend, but then Sophia and Parker wouldn't feel excluded. I didn't see how that would be fair to myself or Megan. Am I the jerk for not wanting to make compromises for my birthday dinner? If you can't control your kids, then this is going to be the result. People aren't going to want them around. You can call it hands-off parenting or whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you're just not raising your kids. They're not pets. You can't just feed them and meet their basic requirements and otherwise leave them to their own devices. You do need to do some actual parenting. It sounds like her hands-off approach might be what she feels is best for her, but isn't what's best for the kids and anyone who has to spend time with those kids. You're not the jerk. Your sister just needs to get her act together and get these kids in line, or else she's gonna have much bigger problems later in life. Not to mention the problems the kids are gonna have. High school creep verbally assaults my BFF for rejecting him, so I expose his messages to the entire school and get him suspended. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This story happened when I was in high school. I went to a smallish high school, around 950 students ranging from the 9th to 12th grade. With so many students in one place, I had quite a few good friends that I talked to, but only a handful that I hung out with and talked with on a daily basis. Now, there was a certain person in our social group. Let's call him Bailey. Bailey was a social outcast by many people's standards, not by bullying or hazing or mistreatment from the other students. It's just that no one really liked him because he was a jerk all the time. He was always playing the victim when he was rejected by girls. He even threatened to ruin the lives of said girls who did reject him. He harassed girls online and touched them in uncomfortable places in person after being told to stop. Stomach, lower back, neck, things like that. He begged for money from people. He was a sexist and racist person to all races and ethnicities. He put himself into other people's conversations and generally wasn't a very nice person to hang around. I have a really good friend. Let's call her A. A has been my best friend ever since I can remember, and she's a wonderful, sweet, and generous person to everyone. One day, we got out for winter break. A came up to me in the hallway before the end of school, bawling her eyes out. I asked her to tell me what was wrong, and she said that Bailey had asked her out before she went to her class over text. But when she declined after explaining that she already had a boyfriend, all hell broke loose. He called her an N-word slut and said she should kill herself because of how fat she was. He said no one loved her because she was a mixture of the two worst races, and said that no one would want her because she's a C-word, and said she had a stinky woohoo area. A had some insecurities about herself, and Bailey hit every single one of them point blank. I was seething with rage while reading her texts, and I was completely appalled and disgusted at his behavior. I told her to dry her eyes and send me screenshots of the conversation he had with her. When she asked what I was going to do with them, I simply told her that I'd had enough of him harassing girls, and I was going to do something about it. Now, I wasn't going to confront him directly, not with how angry I was at the moment. Instead, I decided to rally the troops and get ready for the bloodbath. I was going to massacre what was left of his entire high school career, his entire life. Now, Bailey had done this to girls before, and luckily I had those girls' numbers saved in my phone because they were my friends and would send each other memes. So I made a group chat and asked everyone to send any type of rude, racist, sexist, or failed attempt to be asked out screenshot over any type of social media that Bailey had sent to them. Over the next 15 minutes, my phone was blaring with text notifications. There were screenshots of Snapchat stories, Facebook comments, text messages. All in all, I had around 60 photos of sexist, racist, or unsolicited pictures or jerk comments or rants that he had made to 15 females, including myself. Over winter break, I composed all of those screenshots into a nice little PowerPoint and saved it in my flash drive on my laptop. I spoke with our principal and I asked him if I could show him something relevant to the safety of the student body during his free break at lunch. He told me that he had no problem with it and a time was set. When it finally comes time for my meeting with the principal, I have a small parade of girls behind me who wanted to come testify, anxiously holding on to each other's hands. We were invited into the principal's private conference room as he sets up his laptop and plugs my flash drive in to connect it to the projector. The principal called in some teachers to be witnesses and called Bailey down to the conference room to take a seat and try to defend himself if the allegations weren't true. The principal clicks the remote to play my presentation, and it slowly begins to load up. The first slide comes up and the room goes deathly silent with a few gasps of shock. As the slides continue on, I notice Bailey is squirming around in his seat, clearly uncomfortable, and the people in the room are getting more agitated and angry. Halfway through the slides, Bailey jumps to his feet and throws his arms in front of the projector screen to censor out a particular image that he had sent to a girl, even though she had blurted out. He tried to explain that he was joking with the comments about race and being a guy or girl, and that these girls were framing him for something he didn't do. He pointed to me and said that I was the ringleader of this operation and that I should be the one who was thrown on the spot, not him. The entire room was tense, and the principal turned on the lights with his hands on his hips and let out a giant sigh. The principal turns to me and tells me thank you for bringing this to his attention, and he asks if he could take the flash drive and use it for the investigations and alleged rumors that were going on about Bailey. I gave it to him and he thanked me again before he left with Bailey and the teachers in tow. Since I copied the original slideshow to my flash drive, I sent the PowerPoint to not only mutual friends at the school, but also his mom and dad through Facebook. All of them were not only absolutely disgusted by his comments, but his family was extremely distraught, but thankful I brought this up to their attention. A few days later, the entire school was summoned to the gym for an announcement. Bailey was there with his parents on either side of him and his frail grandma on the small stage we have set up for concerts and band productions. It turns out the parents, mainly the grandma, wanted it to be known that there are consequences for your actions. And since the grandma was head of the household, she called the principal and requested an assembly to address her grandson's behavior. The slideshow is playing on repeat on a projector in the background for everyone to see. The principal said a few words about how harassment in any shape, form, or fashion would not be tolerated, and neither would sexism or any form of racist behavior or comments. The principal made Bailey apologize publicly to the school about his behavior, and how he would never do it again. His parents were embarrassed, but they also apologized to the school and to the young ladies that he had harassed. His grandmother did not let him off so easily. She slapped his knee with her cane hard and started yelling at him for being so disgusting and such a disappointment to her and to the rest of the family. Bailey started to cry on the stage as his mother and father tried to calm down his grandmother. Once everything calmed down, they were escorted off the property. He was suspended for the rest of the year for verbal harassment and racist comments. Later on in the same year, I found out that he had tried to rob a grocery store and was now facing trial for battery, assault with a deadly weapon, and armed robbery. My friends and I all graduated happily, and I never saw that jerk again. I don't understand how there are people that exist in the world that think this type of behavior is in any way acceptable. Normally, I would start looking at the parents, but it sounds like he's actually got some people looking over him that want him to be a decent person. So I really don't know what went wrong here, honestly. But either way, the pattern of behavior that he's developed is absolutely disgusting. I don't need to sit here and tell you that these things are not okay to say. Honestly, stories like this just make me angry more than anything. There's nothing to really be said here. This behavior is wrong, and it cannot be allowed, period. Grandma seems to have the right idea. Maybe a couple more whacks with that cane will get him in line. I really do hope they censored parts of that presentation for the General Assembly, though. Entitled Karen that I babysit for yells at my mom because I ate 2 cookies while I was at her house. So I make sure to get back at her in the best way possible. When I was in my teens, I had a paper route, mowed lawns, that sort of thing, for extra money. I also babysat. One of my paper route customers wanted a babysitter for a Saturday night, and I took the gig. They wanted me there for 7 p.m., and I was 10 minutes early. The wife kept an immaculate home. Everything in its place and very tidy. When I arrived, she gave me the rundown, including pointing out how she had graciously provided me a snack, 2 Oreo cookies and a glass of juice on the counter. I had skipped dinner, and soon after they left, I explored the pantry, found the bag of Oreos, and helped myself to 2 more. Now, this pantry was the size of a large walk-in closet, and it was stuffed. There were lots of canned goods, all facing forward with the labels in perfect alignment. There were cereal boxes set up on the shelves in descending sizes. I don't know if she was a 1970s version of a doomsday prepper, but there was a ton of stockpiled food in there. All went well until they returned. The wife said she was paying me from 8 p.m., even though I arrived before 7, because they were late leaving. She also made a point of magnanimously pointing out that the hubby was giving me a free ride home. Lady, it's after midnight and I'm 15. Did you expect me to walk home? Whatever. Then the storm hit. The next day, she shows up at our house, freaking out on my mom, calling her a lousy parent and me a thief. Why? Because I ate those 2 cookies. That's right. She counted the Oreos and found 2 missing. The argument was short. My mom told her to screw off and she roared away down the street. Fast forward a month or 2 and I'm delivering the Saturday paper in the early afternoon, and hubby asks if I'm available to babysit that evening. Apparently, the babysitter they had arranged backed out at the last minute. Against my better judgment, I accepted. I could use the cash. The wife made a point of mentioning that she didn't want a repeat of last time, and made me agree not to eat anything but what she had laid out for me. Fine. I didn't know at the time, but it's clear the wife suffered from OCD. If I had known, I probably wouldn't have done what I did. I have a little more knowledge about psychological conditions now, but at the time, all I knew was that this woman was a jerk who had yelled at my mom. So as soon as they left, I got to work. I removed every label from every can in the pantry. She had them all set up by categories: soups on one shelf, canned fruit on another, canned vegetables on a different shelf. I scattered them. I also shuffled the boxes around. I messed that pantry up any way I could. I pulled out the tray from the Chips Ahoy cookies and put them in the Oreos bag, and then put the Oreos in the Chips Ahoy bag. I pulled out the bag from the Rice Krispies box and swapped it with the cornflakes. You get the idea. Then I left a note on the floor that said, "Don't ever call me again." They paid me when they got home, and I said I would walk home. I then took the money they gave me and left it in their mailbox on the way out. The next morning, I gave my parents a heads up about what I had done, just in case Psycho Wife showed up again. They were disappointed, but quite amused. She never showed up. I continued the paper route for some time, but within a few days, I had received notice that they had canceled their delivery of the newspaper. Fine with me. Over the next few months, I would see them now and again and would simply look at them and smile. They would scramble back into the house, avoiding me. There were also some kids on my route that had some experience with this woman, and apparently she had treated others badly as well. That was the reason she couldn't find a sitter. Word had gotten around to avoid that jerk. When I told 1 or 2 what I had done, they all thought it was brilliant and wished they had thought of it. I agree that it definitely sounds like she had OCD. Her behavior kind of indicates that, between counting of cookies and being that upset that 2 are missing. along with all the labels being in perfect alignment in the pantry. All of that shouts obsessive-compulsive disorder. Now, you did address that and say that you didn't understand that kind of thing at the time, which I get. But I'm sure hubby in this story had to deal with a heck of a lot for the next couple days. I do gotta give you points for creativity on how you managed to screw with her though. I can't say I would have had the patience to be that thorough. Rich jerk constantly screws with my friend, so my friend gets him sent off to military school. This happened to my friend G back in the 1960s. He was 14 to 15 years old in high school in a small West Coast town in the USA. G was a small, easygoing kid. He did some work cutting lawns or something for his rich jerk neighbor of the same age. And of course, Rich Jerk stiffed him. G's parents complained to Rich Jerk's parents, who couldn't believe their perfect little son would ever do such a thing. There were a couple of other incidents, mostly Rich Jerk stealing credit at school for work G had done, or general bullying. But Rich Jerk was a suck-up as well as a weasel, and nothing ever happened. He wasn't even suspected. Key point, Rich Jerk had an electric typewriter, which was rare in my high school days, and bragged about it and showed off his efforts. He claimed to get better grades on typed paper. G saw an opportunity here. Like most of the houses in town in that bygone era, security was minimal. It was easy to slip in an unlocked window, so that's what G did when the house was empty. He brought a little file with him, and filed a little off the bar of the E character on the typewriter, just enough to make it unique. Then, he very slowly typed up a page. G didn't type, so it was Hunt and Peck. The page started with, "Ha ha, the stupid teacher never reads this far, he's a real jerk face," and continued for a full page. It used every dirty word he could think of, and especially insulted the vice president in charge of the teachers. He then left with this piece of paper, leaving everything else untouched. Several weeks later, Rich Jerk had typed another paper. It was paperclipped together as per the requirements. G somehow managed to distract either him or the teacher and slid his special sheet in the middle. Rich Jerk failed the class, even though he'd been getting good grades up to that point. He appealed to the vice president. The extra insults directed the VP's way made the VP allow the teacher's grade. Rich Jerk claimed that someone else must have typed that, but upon closer examination, the modified E character matched on all the pages, and didn't match any other typewriter. Checkmate. His own parents didn't believe him. Once they started looking, they found a lot more bad behavior that they'd ignored, and Rich Jerk ended up in military school, not the place you want to be in the 1960s. While I doubt it was your intention to get him shipped off to military school, you can't argue with the results on this one. I don't blame our original poster for what happened. It seemed like it all just kinda snowballed from that initial incident that they kicked off. But it seems that this jerk of a kid had it coming. At least this way, our original poster's friend was free to not have to deal with this jerk anymore. My school cafeteria was serving food that was just unedible. So I had to do something about it. Back in my college days, I lived on campus and ate the 20 meals a week meal plan at the cafeteria. It was terrible. Seriously. I know people complain about their college cafeteria all the time, but they still gain their freshman 15. I lost mine. The food was disgusting. Sunday spaghetti was made from tomato sauce and Saturday's cheap hamburgers. One week, they didn't bother ripping up the hamburgers. Watery, sauce-tinted, overcooked noodles garnished with dry, leathery, 2-day-old hamburger patties. It was still better than the other options. At first, they had a make-your-own pizza line, but removed it because everyone was using it and apparently bread isn't cheap. I remember seeing a real salad in their healthy eats line and getting excited, because it's hard to screw up salads, only to realize it was literally floating in oil. The salad on the actual salad bar was not an option. It was changed out every morning, whether it needed it or not. Oh, sorry, I meant the ice in the salad bar, not the salad, no. A student wrote his initials in the tuna and it remained there for a solid week. Sometimes the salad would grow its own salad. They had a big board set up for student complaints, and they would write responses back. Oddly enough, the board rarely had bad things to say. The manager, may he be haunted by 1,000 bedbugs, confessed that he didn't have the time to answer every complaint, but he did read every one, and took the complaints into consideration. And from there, as far as we could tell, he would proceed to throw away all the ones he didn't like. At one point, the board of trustees wanted to meet with students. Only a handful of students, but I got my name on the list. The food was catered by the cafeteria. Basic sandwiches if I recall. Still, the first step of any revenge is to make a big deal out of it. And boy did I. Man, this sandwich has real lettuce on it. This is way better than what the cafeteria usually serves us, and the meat doesn't even have a rind on it. The trustees laughed it off. Surely it wasn't that bad, right? I didn't even have to answer. The other students filled in the details, forcefully, for the rest of the meeting. It was supposed to be about general issues, but it became yell about the food situation, and was awesome. The administration, with the trustees yanking on their ear, had a talk with the cafeteria manager, and thus Steak and Shrimp Night was born. It was touted as a really big deal, where they were going all out with super awesome food. Both the administration and the cafeteria promised great things. The students almost believed them. They made such a big deal out of it. The doors opened and someone was there handing out tickets. 1 ticket each. You could use it to get either a steak or some shrimp. A leathery, overcooked, gristly, thin, tiny steak, or micro-sized, overcooked popcorn shrimp. Students left to eat ramen in their dorms in droves. People were angry. Students flooded the comment box with so many comments, the top actually broke off from the interior pressure. And the next day, the comment board had a single note on it, thanking the staff for the delicious meal. Now, the organization that ran the cafeteria was run by corrupt, money-grubbing jerks, but they were based out of state and super cheap, so there was no way we could touch them. Plus, a lot of employees were actually really nice people. It was the manager and his wife, that were the problem. There was no way to fix it until survey day, a few weeks before the end of the semester. Desperate for more than 6 entries total, the cafeteria was giving away a bike. Anyone who filled out a survey was entered for a chance to win. Not that anyone cared. The students had been ignored so long they assumed the bike would be won by the manager, and having their name attached to the survey was extra super bad. I, however, hatched a plan. The poor lady handing out surveys was not allowed to do anything else that day. She was the survey lady. End of story. And she was supposed to stay until the last survey was handed out. I offered to pass out some surveys, and she gladly accepted. I took a stack of surveys to a back table and filled in every single one of them. Name, phone number, bad, 0, terrible, would not buy again, on to the next. Fun fact, the top of the survey with my name was designed to tear off. The name went in the bowl for the bike drawing, and the survey was submitted suddenly anonymously. I filled out a stack, returned them, then filled out another, and kept coming back until I filled out the very last survey she had. Revenge isn't for quitters. As I walked back to my dorm, my hand was sore, but my heart was light, and so began the falling dominoes. I didn't learn the full story until the next semester, but as it turned out, the survey was the worst on record. Administration, who had been watching closely, noticed. Angry meetings were had. Meetings that the cafeteria didn't cater. The health inspector was invited and gleefully slapped some hefty fines on the parent company. School cafeteria fines are no laughing matter, it seems. By the end of the semester, the manager was collecting his last paycheck. His wife was fired too. Probably because she was a troll. Seriously, I'm pretty sure she lived under a bridge and bullied goats. The university got a sweet new please don't tell anyone deal. And oh man, the food. It tasted like food. Glorious day. Oh, and just to add insult to injury, I won the bike too. I'm sure everyone on campus was touting you as a hero that day. Cafeteria food is infamously horrible. Having to live off of it is not a pleasant experience for anyone that has to. But you know what? One way or another, this needed to happen. Clearly, they had become complacent in their routine of serving bad food, and it would take something big like this to actually shake up the system at this point. You probably could have saved yourself a lot of time and effort by just making a call to the health inspector though. If it's as bad as you were describing from what you see, I can only imagine how bad it was behind the counter. School principal refuses to discipline a bad student and deletes all his permanent records, so I get him permanently replaced. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. My best friend, Karen, is a first grade teacher, and as soon as she told me this story, it gave me such a justice boner that I knew I had to retell it. 2 years ago, Karen had a student named Xavier. Sweet little 6-year-old boy when things were good, but his parents had just gotten divorced. His mom wasn't that great even before she was out of the picture, and his dad was quite disengaged from both his son's behavior and his individualized education plan. Rather understandably, Xavier acted out in class. He'd refused to listen to Karen, push other kids, and disrupt class in more ways than I could possibly list. Now, Karen worked her butt off with Xavier to improve his behavior and get his dad more involved in a positive way. She'd often call me and talk about it to decompress, and that's what friends were for. But occasionally, Xavier went too far and did something she couldn't just deal with in class, like trying to stab another student in the hand with a pencil. On those occasions, she wrote him up with a referral and sent him to the VP. But surprise, surprise, VP was absolutely no help whatsoever. He'd joke around with Xavier and refuse to address the problem Karen had sent Xavier there for. He'd give him candy and then lecture Karen for writing up a 6-year-old for any reason because it reflected badly on him as the VP. I'm pretty sure this has to do with the bullcrap known as merit pay, but whatever. Unfortunately, his actions made it significantly harder for Karen to help Xavier. To top it all off, Karen figured out after a few referrals that VP logged into the system and erased each of Xavier's referrals, thus erasing all evidence of Xavier's pattern of behavior. In a word, this is bad. I know nothing about education, but I know that much at least. My brother was a terror in elementary school and got in so much trouble from 3rd to 6th grade that both the principal and vice principal were on a first-name basis with my mom. Those records sure didn't just disappear. Not into the shredder and certainly not into the digital ether. She reported this to her higher-ups who weren't the VP, but they both told him about the complaint and specified that Karen was the one making the complaint. The VP was cold and rude with her after that. Nothing was done about it because it seemed to be a one-time thing. But now Karen knew what to do. Every time she had to write Xavier up again, which blessedly became less often as the year went on, she meticulously documented everything herself. She sent herself all the relevant stuff, saved the emails, the whole shebang. By the end of the year, Xavier's behavior had greatly improved thanks to her mentoring in the various ways she learned how to engage with him in the classroom. She even talked to his 2nd grade teacher to make sure the woman knew how to work with Xavier. Honestly, Karen went above and beyond for this child. Partway through the next school year, the higher-ups come to talk to Karen again. Even though nothing was done about her complaint the previous year, a record had been made of it. As it turns out, another teacher had reported the VP for doing the exact same thing to her as he'd done to Karen. If she had anything related to her own ordeal, they wanted to see it. Oh boy, did she. She gave them every single digital receipt she'd accumulated for the better part of the school year to compare with the VP's, which established a pattern of him undermining teachers via erasing students' patterns of behavior. The VP was quickly removed from his position as vice principal of Karen's school, even though he wasn't technically fired. The jerk was just moved to a different school and put in a much lesser position, and paid significantly less than before. Yeah, the VP can't be doing stuff like this. You're not benefiting anyone but yourself. It's an incredibly selfish move. You're hurting the child who actually needs to have this behavior addressed, and you're hurting the teacher who has to put up with this behavior every day. I get that you don't want to look bad as a VP, but you can't be doing it at the expense of your teachers and students. Then you are a bad VP. You're still a bad VP at that point. Your higher-ups just don't know about it yet. I got every single employee fired from a store for trying to scam me. After leaving the drive-thru at a fast food place a few years ago, I noticed I wasn't given the correct change. The attendant had just shoved some money at me and, with trying not to hold up the line, I waited until I pulled ahead to put the change into my wallet. I was missing $2, which isn't much, but still. So I drove back through the lane and mentioned the error. And oddly, the guy knew the exact amount. then left the window and went to the inside counter where I could still see him, bent down, and then brought me the $2. It seemed fishy, so during the main shift, I returned and went inside and talked to the manager. He pretty much blew me off and said sometimes people keep money up there, blah blah blah. Since he was the manager, I figured he must not think it was a problem, and it was just a tiny amount of money. But a few weeks later, same drive-thru, same attendant, and the same thing happened. I gave him a 20, and this time I paid attention. He shorted me by $5. So when I came back, I said, I gave you a 20, and he literally interrupted me and said, oh yeah, I owe you $5. This was too suspicious. And if the manager was too dumb to pay attention, time to go to the main office. If you've ever tried to enter an online complaint for a fast food chain or almost anything else, it's a nightmare. I did not want to mention customer service because that would go to the manager who didn't listen to begin with. So I registered it as a compliance issue for the legal department. A few days later, I got a call. When I launched into my story, the guy immediately tried to divert me to customer service. And I stopped him short with my best ticked off mom voice and said, "You need to listen to me now." And then he paid attention. I didn't have any hopes it would go anywhere, but to my surprise and gratification, a week or so later, I got a call from a woman over the entire metro area where I live. She thanked me for my complaint and told me the outcome. It turns out this site had oddly low sales amounts, but had a long-time crew that seemed dependable. So after getting the complaint, they paid a surprise audit visit, ran a report on the registers, and viewed the videos. They had videos of the register and all activities. Wow. The guy at drive-thru was scamming every way he could figure out, and others were in on it, including the manager. Almost everyone got fired, all but one employee as I recall. They were logging in refunds that were not given, and then pocketing it and several other things, including this guy blatantly just plain stealing money. These jerks had gotten by with it for years because people were trying to get to work and didn't notice or didn't bother to look into it. Someone's gonna catch on to this eventually. I'm really surprised that it took years to do so. You think any regular customer would notice that they're constantly missing change. And the dude from the window was super suspicious. Knowing right away and how much every single time, it just sets off some red flags. Like, you're very aware of it, so how come my change was missing? My jerk uncle threatened my dog, so I threatened his life. So this happened when I was about 5 years old, and my dad told me the whole thing. For our cast, we have my jerk uncle, my dog, who is my dog and is amazing, and me, original poster. About my dog. When I was a cute young boy, I had the best and smartest dog that I ever had. His name was Brian, and he was an old German Shepherd that my family got from a nice old lady because she couldn't take care of him anymore. As I said, he was smart. For example, if my little 2-year-old sister got outside, my dog would drag her inside the house again. Or when I escaped from home to play in the woods, he would just guide me back to my home in the night. And a lot more things like that. I love that dog so much. Sadly, he passed away from cancer when I was like 10 years old. So here goes the story. As I said, I had a dog when I was around 4 or 5 years old. And I also had a jerk uncle. Jerk uncle was and is a piece of garbage, a parasite. He steals from his own family. And not only things or money, but he also stole a song that my dad wrote and sold it. Also, he used to drink a lot at family reunions and was disgusting with kids. And boy did he terrorize me. He screamed at me, he joked horribly at me, and his favorite, threatened me by saying, "I'm gonna kill your dog." My dad hit him once and told him to stop, but he didn't. So one day, I was at my grandma's house and my mom and dad went to the market for something. Then jerk uncle arrived and saw me. "I'm gonna kill your dog," he screams. I got scared and started to cry and run in the house. And he chases after me, repeating himself. Then I saw it in all of its glory, behind the wardrobe. My other uncle's shotgun. I grabbed it. I was very big for my age, so I could handle its weight. And then I aimed at jerk uncle and said the coolest thing that I ever said. "Who are you gonna kill?" And boy, he ran outside of the house and fell to the ground. I repeated myself and went for him again. Who are you going to kill? In that moment, the cute kid was gone. I was full of rage. He was screaming like an ape and crawled under the car. Then people started to get involved, and when someone tried to get the gun, I just pointed at them screaming in rage. Who are you going to kill? It was like a mantra. And then I saw my dad, and all the blind rage went away. I dropped the gun and started to cry like the little and traumatized kid that I was. My dad screamed my name and took the shotgun away from me. My mom grabbed me while my dad opened the shotgun. Then he saw my uncle. He looked at me again and looked at the shotgun once more. It was loaded, he said. Jerk uncle screamed in horror one more time and started yelling at my dad. My dad just said, "This was all your fault. I told you to stop terrorizing Original Poster, but you just can't stop, right? Just shut up. I'm using all of my strength to not shoot you in the face right now." My jerk uncle never threatened me or my dog again. The funny part, the shotgun wasn't loaded at all. While I really want to get behind our Original Poster on this one and say, yay for our hero, I can't get over the fact that there was a shotgun just sitting around that a 5-year-old had access to. This could have ended horribly, and thankfully it didn't this time, but it never should have been a possibility in the first place. Please, just be responsible about your guns. My bully of a half-sister told everyone that I made our father abandon her. So I had to set the record straight. I, 24-year-old female, have a half-sister, 27-year-old female, who we'll call Taylor. My dad had weekend visitation with Taylor at our house until I was 8, and it was the worst. She bullied me really badly anytime I saw her, to the point that I would scream every time my dad mentioned her coming over. Even if we were kept apart, she would break my things, upset my pets, and tell lies about me. Every week, her mom would end up in the kitchen screaming at my parents. Taylor's mom died when she was 11. Her mom didn't have any family able to take her in, and nor did my dad. My dad was the only one who could get custody. When I was told about this, I freaked out, screaming, crying for hours, calling my grandparents and demanding to live with them, all of it. My mom wasn't willing to have Taylor in the house on that basis, and I'm pretty sure she said she would move out if my dad pushed the issue. Taylor ended up being sent to boarding school the next year, and she would go to stay with other members of my dad's family during breaks. When I was 14, my parents divorced, and I would see Taylor every few months at my dad's during school breaks. I'd learned to stand up for myself at that point, and she'd grown up, so there was no bullying, but we'd bicker. She was hostile, and I never backed down. I didn't see her much after she went to college, and then I went to college far away as well. We now live in the same small city. I moved here in March. It's the kind of place where everyone from each generation knows or knows of each other. I had never encountered Taylor socially, and never mentioned knowing her, but I had met her boyfriend and his friends are a part of my larger social group. The other night, I was at a party, and Taylor and her boyfriend were there as well. We made eye contact and waved, but she pretty much avoided me all night. During the night, our mutual friends asked how I know Taylor, and I said we were half-sisters. They all looked super uncomfortable, and I pressed for an explanation. Basically, Taylor's been telling everyone that she was homeless as a kid because her stepmother and half-sister hated her, and demanded she be shipped off to boarding school and made her dad ignore her. Were it not for the fact that it was obviously going to come out sooner or later that we're related, I probably wouldn't have bothered to set the record straight. As it was, I'm gonna be around these people for a long time, and I didn't feel I should have to walk around burdened by the weight of her lies. So I told the group the context. I explained that the reason my mom didn't want Taylor to live with us was because of the bullying, and that when they split, my dad didn't have Taylor live with him, and that I only stayed with him on weekends. Taylor had told them that I moved in with my dad so that she couldn't. I also told them that it wasn't true that I told my dad not to finance Taylor's business when she was 20, because I didn't. She called me yesterday to yell at me. Apparently, she's being ostracized from the group, her relationship is in trouble, her career opportunities are in jeopardy, everything. I don't know how any of this is my fault because she's the one who lied. But according to some people, I should have been a bit more gentle in my retelling of the facts because it's her experience, and I've basically blackballed her. So I put it to you, am I the jerk? I'll be honest, I don't think I'm really a fan of anyone in this story. I just feel like it's an unfortunate situation for everyone, and everyone kind of had their hands tied. At the end of the day, you can break it all down to the fact that she was bullying you, and if she didn't, none of this would have been a problem. At the same time, I understand why she would harbor resentment towards you, and why she might feel the way she does about you and your mom. I don't think that there's really a right answer or solution to this one. At least, I don't have one. These sound like they have been problems for way too long to just sit down and have a conversation and fix. But maybe it's possible. You've acknowledged that you guys are better now. Maybe there's some hope to salvage this. My friend left a bunch of beers at my place and then got mad at me for drinking them. I, 28-year-old male, had my friend Brian, 29-year-old male, come over almost 3 months ago, where he brought over a 12-pack of beer and only drank half of it. When he left the remaining beers in my fridge, despite me reminding him to grab them. Since then, he came over twice for little things and I told him to grab the beers he left, but he didn't. Come Saturday, I had a couple people over and they asked if they could have the beer, which I considered abandoned at this point, so I said sure. They drank all of the remaining beers that night. Last night, Brian came over for a minute and asked to grab his beers, and I told him they were gone. He got angry that I gave his beers away and demanded that I pay for the remaining beers. I refused because I felt he had plenty of time to take or drink them and that he'd abandon them at my place. So, am I the jerk? Okay, for this one, I do feel like your friend's being a little petty here. Like, yeah, you left them for quite a while. You can't really be surprised that they got drank, especially when you were reminded to take them several times. But at the end of the day, they were his beers. And if he wants you to pay for the 6 beers, just pay for the 6 beers. Do I think it's petty? Yes. Do I agree with it? Heartless manager won't give me time off to see my dying grandma, so I kill her career. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I was just told this story by a friend who doesn't have Reddit. Alright, so my friend, let's call him Jay, is a senior in high school working at a photography studio. Jay is often scheduled 13-hour shifts without a food break at his job, which he doesn't mind because it's good money and he's a hard worker. Jay came home from work on a Wednesday and was told by his mom that his grandmother is on her last leg, and that they're going to see her for what will probably be the last time before she goes this coming Saturday, being 3 days away. Unfortunately, Jay's work schedule was already posted, and he was scheduled to work all day that Saturday. So Jay did what any good employee does. He messaged his manager explaining the situation and says he needs someone to cover his shift that Saturday as he'll not be coming in. The manager gave him a list of people who weren't working that day for him to text and ask if they can pick up the shift. Jay sends messages out to all of them and is told by every single employee off that day that they're busy Saturday and can't work. So Jay reaches back out to his manager to let him know that he can't get a cover. Jay is then told by his manager that if he doesn't come in that day, he'll be fired. When he states that it will likely be the last time he ever sees his grandma alive, she says that she does not care, and that he better come into work that Saturday. Jay didn't take so well to being told his manager didn't give a crap about his grandma dying, so he decided to pay a little phone call to HR. Remember those 13-hour shifts without breaks? Well, Jay is 17, and in this state, people under 17 cannot work more than 9 consecutive hours, especially without a break. Jay explains all of this to HR, on top of the situation concerning his grandma. Jay also puts in his 2 weeks on top of this. HR tells him that he'll follow up with him soon, and that something will be done about all of this. That Friday, Jay came into work and his manager was gone, replaced by a new manager from another store. Jay also had been asked by the new manager if he would consider staying, and he agreed. So now Jay is still employed and much happier, and his manager is without a job. After he finished texting me all of this, he added, "Don't mess with me and I won't mess with you, jerk." We've talked about similar stories to this before, and it still blows my mind how heartless people can be. Like, talk about corporate greed. If you're not gonna give a crap that your employee's grandma is passing away and this is the last time he's gonna get to see her, then he's not gonna give a crap about your company. Just give your good, hard-working employee the day off. They've given you every other day. My entitled stepsister canceled the original booking for my wedding venue, so I made my father rebook at nearly triple the original cost. My stepsister impersonated me and canceled my wedding venue reservation. She's 18 and a jealous cow. I got the reservation for a steal because I booked really early. Well, now demand for wedding venues has skyrocketed. The venue is now asking nearly triple the original cost for the same date. They said they'll only honor the original reservation if I show proof that my stepsister committed fraud or identity theft in the form of a police report. My father has begged me not to involve the police, so I told him he'll need to cover the new cost then. All of it except my original deposit, because I'm very aggravated. He's going to be selling some property in order to do this. He's put down the additional deposit for the venue already though. I know he was not to blame, but he houses that witch, and by asking me not to report her for fraud, I can only assume he takes responsibility for her actions. Am I the jerk? I do feel guilty because my fiance and I are much more financially well off than my father. But I just feel like this is not my problem to fix. He did find an alternative venue that was pretty nice and wasn't as expensive, but I said it had to be the original venue. I'm just incredibly peeved. I don't really know where I fall on this one. I really don't like the move of you setting your father back so much because of something that his stepdaughter did. Without a doubt, it was a jerk move on her part, and it really sucks that the venue now wants nearly triple the original cost. I get where you're coming from, that it seems like your father's trying to defend her, but this is a whole other situation financially. As you said, you're much better off than him. You're setting him back years for something that you could potentially cover easily. I really don't think that's fair to him. You don't want to take my number off your website? That's fine, I'll just make your lives miserable. A few years ago, after changing jobs, I found myself in a new office with a new phone number. After some orientation, training, and other new hire stuff, I finally get to sit down and do the things. I get my voicemail and answering machine set up the email, and the phone rings. Good morning, Railroad Engineering. Yeah, when can I take the GED test? Sorry, wrong number. Click, rings again. Seriously, when can I take the GED test? Like I said, wrong number. Bye. This went on for weeks. 15 to 20 calls a day. People screaming at me for not being the Adult Learning Center. One day, an epiphany. This isn't the Adult Learning Center? Nope. Do you know the number? Check Google. I did. This is the number on their website. Oh, really? A little Google foo of my own, and I dig up a few numbers and give them a call. They tell me that they don't maintain their website, and there's nothing they can do about it, and it's not their problem. I'm just gonna have to deal with it. My favorite line of that conversation was, "What are you gonna do about it? I work for the state. You can't do crap. Bye-bye." And you can just imagine that bye-bye just dripped with the condescension that only hubris and decades of Karenhood can muster. Oh, heck no. Let's dance. The next day, good morning, Railroad Engineering. When can I take the GED test? We give that on request. It takes about an hour and a half. Come on down. Oh, awesome. How much is it? $10. Bring a pencil. We'll sharpen yours, but we can't supply them. Budget cuts, you know? Nah, I get it. See you in a bit. Take your time. They don't like me telling you this, but if you get here before we close, they have to give you the test. See you when you get here. Thanks, man. See you later. Now, for those of you who don't know, the GED test takes a whole frickin' day. It also usually costs upwards of $100, depending on the state. In the state I was living and working in at the time, it was around $200. As such, it was only offered at certain intervals. So as I was telling dozens of people per day that it was $10, took 90 minutes, and offered on request, I'm sure that they were absolutely inundated with angry people with freshly sharpened number 2 pencils, waving their $10 bills and demanding the test that the guy on the phone told them they could come and take. Every morning I checked the website to see if my phone number was still on there. I also took the liberty of crawling around and getting the phone numbers for some managers. I was happy to hand these out when people called back to complain that they hadn't been allowed to take the test. Head back down there and ask to speak to random director and tell them they called the number on the website and that this is what they were told. It took them about 6 more weeks to change the website. For some reason, all the managers' numbers disappeared from the website as well. I tried to play nice, jerks. I love the line, "What are you gonna do about it?" Like, I can literally screw you guys over here. Our original poster just proved that quite efficiently. You're giving him all the power by having him direct all of the people that call you. You need to take it off the website. It's for your own benefit. It absolutely 100% is your problem. Maybe not immediately, but you best believe it will be, especially when you're screwing with the guy who has that number. My boss accused me of reporting him, so I did. I worked for a small company for 6 weeks at the end of 2020. It was landscape architecture. He sacked me with no real explanation when I was off sick with COVID. I have undiagnosed, highly suspected ADHD, so I wasn't massively surprised as it affects my performance. But I was surprised by the timing and the fact that it was via email. I asked for more clarity. I was never rude to him. I just told him I wish he'd call me so I could get some feedback. He got really mad and proceeded to write a long list of my over-exaggerated and sometimes false shortcomings. For example, being too slow or being distracted, stuff he never mentioned at the time. He then said, "If you want to take legal action against me, let me know." I didn't. I left it and moved on. Fast forward to today. He just called my mobile from a private number asking how I was. I was taken aback, as we've had no communication since. He said, "Someone's put in a report I'm using unlicensed software. Was it you? Because I know we left on bad terms." I said, "I've no idea what you're talking about." He made it seem I was devastated he sacked me, and would have good reason to report him. No matter what I said, he was convinced it was me. He even accused my dad, who works in IT. I didn't even know he was using unlicensed software. I said, "I feel like you're unfairly accusing me here." He raised his voice and shouted, "Why do you always play the victim? Stop playing the victim!" I assume this was in reference to the fact that I questioned the way he sacked me. It sounded so rehearsed, I honestly had to hold back laughter. Then he said, "I'm not accusing you, but did you do it?" Looking back, I believe it was unlicensed. We only ever used the student version of Autodesk, which is illegal when you're running a business. This, combined with his accusation, tells me he is in fact breaking the law. I was so peeved by his accusation, I reported him to both Autodesk and the BSA. He'll have to run an audit and likely face a huge fine. He thinks I did it either way, so what harm can one more report do? If he wants me to be a jerk, I can be a jerk. It's not being a jerk to report someone for breaking the law. This guy sounds like a little bit of a doofus, honestly. If you're running a successful company and you have everything going smoothly, pay for your software, this is a stupid thing to get caught on. It's a small fee that you make back multiple times over. And with it paid, you don't have to worry about situations like this. But even if you do think that our original poster reported you, why would you call and threaten them? They're just going to report you again. You're not making your situation any better. My sister-in-law asked if she could stage her proposal at my wedding reception. I told her no. I felt like this was pretty obviously not a jerk move at the time, but now I'm having second thoughts. Am I the jerk for telling my soon-to-be sister no, she cannot stage her proposal at my wedding reception? My wedding is in 2 months, so there's still time to change my answer and compromise if I'm in the wrong. Last week, my soon-to-be in-laws took me, 22-year-old female, out to dinner with my fiancé Jim, 31-year-old male. We were talking about wedding plans when suddenly my sister-in-law and mother-in-law both say they have something important to discuss with me, and sort of giggle at each other like it's gonna be some exciting little gossip. I figured it had to do with the bachelorette party, so I got all excited too. They told me that my sister-in-law got proposed to over the weekend. I of course got all excited for her, asked to see the ring and all, and it was very beautiful. They then get a little hushed and tell me her fiancé's proposal plan was rather lackluster, and they're making him do a do-over with the family present. They then said that my wedding reception was the best place, since all our family and friends would be there. I asked them to tell me what exactly they had in mind. I mean, I want to be the center of attention on my wedding day. It's what all girls dream of. But I was at least willing to hear the idea out. My sister-in-law would have to invite 3 of her friends to be present, her future bridesmaids apparently. She would come out also wearing a wedding dress, potentially even my dress to cut costs, with my flower girl holding a sign that says bride-to-be, and then of course her being proposed to and carried off by her fiancé out of the party. Of course, I was floored and said I wasn't too sure if that's really a good idea and I'd talk it over with Jim. They told me they already talked it out with him, and he said he thought I would definitely agree. I texted him to not cause any more issues at the table and he confirmed. I said I would think about it, just to get out of the awkwardness and pressure for the rest of the evening. But once I sent a text once again clarifying no, I wouldn't be okay with that, they showed up at my house to argue that since they're paying for half the wedding, more like 30%, they deserve to have input on my wedding, which they have, but not for something like this. More like catering options. My fiancé has been trying to badger me into saying yes, saying it's selfish of me to not just give 25 to 30 minutes to his family. Anyways, with how my fiancé has been acting, of course nobody in his family has been on my side. I'm no contact with my family, so I have no idea if this is just a case of family picking sides, or if I'm truly in the wrong here. Am I being a self-centered jerk like they say? Not only is your sister-in-law being a jerk by making her fiancé re-propose to her, but she's gonna do it at your wedding reception. That's not only disrespectful to you, but also the plan that she has is one of the tackiest things I've ever heard. It's so obviously staged. Everyone at the reception is just gonna roll their eyes. Honestly, it's a really bad plan. I don't blame you one bit for saying no. In general, you would want to say no to having someone else get proposed to at your reception. But like this? Absolutely not. My entitled neighbor accuses me of stealing their packages, so I let them get stolen. I, 24-year-old male, live in a duplex. Been here for the last 5 years. My building has a single front door that both apartments use, that enters into a small foyer with stairs about 4 feet away or so that lead up to the apartment upstairs. When I moved in, I had friendly, slightly older neighbors I'll call Jack and Jill that didn't cause any issues, were relatively quiet, and when packages were delivered for me, Jack would bring them inside and place them in the foyer, and I started doing the same for them. Never had any issues with that, and they would thank me and I thanked them. Unfortunately, in February of 2022, Jill passed away. Jack moved out 9 months later. In January of 2023, my new neighbor moved in. She's around 40-ish in age, I guess. She's relatively quiet, doesn't cause any issues. We've barely had a conversation outside of a greeting in the evening when I come home from work. She's got a lovely golden retriever, which occasionally barks, but meh, it's a dog. Dogs bark. No real big issues with her. I continued to do what I did for Jack and Jill with deliveries, bringing her boxes inside and leaving them in the foyer for her. She never returned the gesture, which is fine since I've started ordering less and less. She never said anything about it until about the month of April. I go out to get the mail and see 4 packages, 2 fairly large ones and 2 smaller ones, all addressed to her, and pick the 2 large ones up, carrying them inside when she comes down the stairs with 2 other women. She asks what I was doing and I tell them that I was just bringing them inside. She says that they were on their way down to get them. So I hand over the 2 I had while one of the ladies retrieves the other 2. I turn to head back inside my apartment, and as they're going back upstairs, new neighbor says, "I can't believe he tried to steal these. I should call the cops," with the other 2 agreeing. I wanted to go tell her that, again, I wasn't stealing anything, but decided to let it go. Fast forward to yesterday. I'm off work and watching TV when at 2:36 p.m. I see UPS pull up. The driver puts 2 packages on the porch. I go check the mail and the boxes are for the new neighbor. I leave them on the porch, go back inside, and end up falling asleep watching TV. Around 4 p.m. I'm awakened by the new neighbor knocking. I open the door and she asks if I have her packages. I say no, I don't have them. New neighbor says the app shows that they were delivered this afternoon. I said I saw them on the porch earlier but left them alone. New neighbor got upset at me, said since one of the boxes had something expensive in it and since I was home, I could have brought them inside the foyer like I've done before. I told her that I didn't want to be accused of being a thief again. She called me a jerk and repeated that one of the packages had expensive stuff inside, and then stormed upstairs slamming her door. So am I the jerk for not bringing her deliveries inside and leaving them to be porch pirated? So couple things about this one really tick me off. For one, she asks why you didn't bring this package in like you did all the others, meaning she knew you weren't stealing anything and were just being a good neighbor and bringing stuff inside. So for her to turn around and accuse you of stealing stuff previously just makes no sense. Second, how are you supposed to know what's in the package? You don't have X-ray vision that can let you see what's in there and know it's expensive and to bring it inside. She just made the assumption that you didn't hear what she said last time. But obviously with you having heard that, you're not going to be doing her any favors regarding her packages. To turn around and call you a jerk after is just nonsensical. My friends didn't want to pay for their tickets to the concert, so I took my sisters and their husbands instead. I was lucky enough to snag 6 tickets to see Garth Brooks in Vegas. My friends and I had made plans to go as 3 couples. I can't really afford to pay for 6 tickets. The concert is kind of expensive. I told my friends that I needed the money for the tickets before my credit card was due. They both promised that they would get it to me. I reminded them a few times and they both forgot. I called my sister and asked her if she knew of anyone who would like to go. She said that her and my stepsister had talked about going. We decided to make it a family trip. They paid me immediately, and I transferred the tickets for each of them. Last week, one of my friends saw that I posted on Facebook about going with my sisters. She asked why I was going twice. I told her I wasn't. I needed to pay off my credit card bill, so I sold 4 of the tickets. They went ballistic. I do not have any credit card debt as I pay my bill in full every month. They both assumed I would be okay just paying the minimum monthly payment like they do. They expected me to save them the tickets even though they didn't pay me. I told them both to check their texts and see where I had agreed to that. I sent them screenshots of where they both agreed to pay me before my bill was due. Now they're ticked off because all the tickets left are either resale or very expensive floor seats. I'm mad at them for trying to mess with my credit, and they're mad at me because they had booked time off to go to the concert. Am I the jerk? Okay, so you're right, but you're also the jerk. Sometimes the two do go together, and I think this is one of those cases. I get where you're coming from, that you feel your friends screwed you over, and that you don't really owe them any explanation. But they are your friends, and you guys had planned this very special day. At the very least, I feel like you should have made them aware that if they don't pay you right now, you're giving the tickets to someone else. At least give them the opportunity to do right. Instead, you really just kind of left them hanging, and the fact that they had to find out through a Facebook post only adds to that. Pesky old lady sneaks onto my property thinking it's a yard sale and demands all of my things for free. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Everyone knows the cost of plywood is sky high right now at around $70 to $80 per sheet. The roofers just finished removing all the old shingles and installed underlayment. They all left for the day and will be back tomorrow to install the shingles after the inspector checks the underlayment and one required row of installed shingles. I hear my doorbell ring, then someone pounding on my door continually like it's an emergency. I answer it thinking it would be the inspector or an emergency. Instead, it's 2 old ladies in their 60s and an old Cadillac parked behind my car in the driveway. They asked if they could have the sheets of plywood stacked behind the tree. It's not a trivial amount they were asking for. I explained the roofers haven't finished the roof yet, and what isn't used they'll be taking back. They looked surprised that I'm having roof work done. even though they're literally standing right next to a 20-foot dumpster by my front door filled with old torn shingles. I mean, they had to walk around the dumpster to bang on my door. Then one of the women said, "Can you give us 2 sheets? We're not using all of them. We want to build a porch." The audacity put me on my heels for a moment, but I was kind to them because they claimed to live a block away, and I just moved in 2 months ago. Again, I politely said that they couldn't have any of my plywood, but Home Depot has plenty for sale. They said, "Home Depot wants like $80 a sheet though." To which I replied, "I know. That's how much the roofing company charged me per sheet." That seemed to shut them up, and they started walking back to their car. I have a fake cat figurine near my front door. It's quite lifelike at a distance. Then the brunette turned around and asked, "How much for the cat figurine?" At this point, I'm starting to get upset with their pushy behavior and treating my property like a flea market. I say, "Sorry, it's not for sale. Have a nice day," and close the door. I watched through the peephole to see them drive away and thought that was the end of the bizarre encounter. Later that night, as I'm leaving to go to the convenience store, I see a sticky note on the window of my project car in the driveway that reads, "Wanted to buy car," with a phone number. They must have come back at night when I was at the store. WTF? My fake cat now lives next to the back door. I moved all the lumber to the backyard and will be setting up security cameras. I don't have time for jerks coming onto my property and thinking stuff's just free. I really don't understand what gave these ladies the impression that they could just knock on your door and ask for stuff. Like, what about your house stood out to them saying, "Yeah, he's just selling all this"? People have stuff on their property. It doesn't mean they want to get rid of it. These ladies don't seem to understand how the world works, I guess. Our client was set back 2 months on their project, which they then blamed on me. Too bad I'd already warned them about it. So let me set the scene. I'm a software engineer, and I used to work for a pretty big company that specialized in developing software solutions for their client. I was sent on site to the client, which was a big Malaysian bank, to play the role of front-end developer, basically make their internet banking website. They already had back-end services set up for a mobile application, which we were also to use for the website. There was only one problem. You could only install the app in one phone and log into your account. That meant if the customer logged into their app, they wouldn't be able to log in through the website. As anyone can determine, this is a big problem. I went to the bank architect and tried to tell him as well as the project manager of this problem. They told me I don't know what I'm talking about and stop disturbing them and just do my job and nothing else. I later found out that they hated the previous front-end manager and would never listen to the front team. So I sent a mail detailing the whole problem to both of them and their bosses as well. As expected, nothing happened, but my butt was covered. Fast forward 2 months, and the client reviews the architecture for the website and finds that no changes have been made to the back end to accommodate the different behavior of the website. They call a meeting and blast the 2 above guys and their boss. They claim they're back end people and don't know the difference in behavior in a website, and it was my job to let them know. So they bring me in to question me why I didn't let them know. And because of me, the project has been delayed 2 months and the company has incurred losses. I calmly tell them of my meeting with 2 idiots and show them the mail, which they ignored. Then it was a glorious explosion. Basically, the architect was called incompetent and his 20 years of experience was called into question, and the project manager blamed everything on the architect. After that, the jerks always considered my suggestions. You're paying someone specifically to come in and deal with this problem and then not going to take their advice? Why are you paying them if you think you know how to do it better? Would seem like a waste of everyone's time and money, no? If you're paying someone to come in and do the job, you have to trust that they know how to do the job and trust their suggestions. Our poster tried to save them from having this problem. They just didn't want to listen. I kicked my sister out on the streets because she was complaining about my violin playing. I, 30-year-old female, am a musician, playing gigs and at an orchestra as a violinist. Rehearsals just resumed, so orchestra is my main source of income at the moment. My sister, 26-year-old female, is a social worker, working 3 days a week, so minimal income, but she adores her job. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, both rooms around 9 to 10 square meters, using the second room as a practice room and storage for my instruments. 3 violins, 2 guitars, a digital piano, a small drum kit, and some other stuff. 4 months ago, my sister broke up with her boyfriend, and I offered her my spare room, temporarily. I moved most of my stuff to the living room so I could fit a small bed in there. Sis moved in, but she asked me to move more stuff to the living room. I pretty much moved everything sans the piano, to the point where the living room became uninhabitable. She then started complaining about my violin playing, saying it gave her headaches. I told her I couldn't stop the daily practice without risking my only steady income. The arguments got worse. She told me to play only when she wasn't home, but with her work schedule, I couldn't afford that. I tried switching to the electric violin, but even that can be pretty loud, so it didn't help. Several times I reminded her that this was only a temporary arrangement, but she didn't seem to hear me. 2 weeks ago, I arrived home to find my piano in the bathroom, near water and humidity, all because my sis needed space for her new double bed. When I told her she can't seriously expect me to store my piano there, she said, "Yeah, well, you'll just have to sell it, I guess." I got so mad at her that I told her she has 7 days to leave, but she didn't take me seriously. For a week, I only talked to her to remind her how much time she has left, but she always just laughed it off and told me to stop acting like a crazy person. When the deadline came, I boxed up all her stuff while she was at work, booked an Airbnb bedsit close by, and drove her stuff there. She was livid, but couldn't do anything but take her new keys and stay there. The following week, she kept calling me with an increasingly apologetic tone, saying she shouldn't have moved my piano or bought a bed. She promised she would put more effort into finding a new place, and by the end of the week, I considered most of our issues at least addressed. So I drove to help her move back. But when I was carrying the first box down, she went, "I do hope you'll at least stop with the violin this time. I absolutely refuse to take any more of that effing violin." I dropped the box, wished her good luck, and left. Now, 2 days later, on one hand, it feels like a big overreaction to leave my own sister literally homeless because of an argument about the violin. I know she can't afford to stay at the Airbnb, but on the other hand, I have no plans to allow her back here, because I feel she would just continue crossing boundaries and never leave. So, am I the jerk here? Your sister is very clearly the jerk in this one. You've offered her a place to stay and made a lot of accommodations to let her have a second room. There are some things that you just have to live with in that situation. One of them being that you're a violinist. I understand how that could get annoying day in and day out, but in that situation, you suck it up, because this is your alternative, a place that you can't afford long term. Like they say, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Doctor's office doesn't want to take my phone number off their information, so I start scheduling them a lot of appointments. My friend moved to a new home in college and got a new phone number. After a few months, he started getting phone calls from pregnant women who wanted to schedule an appointment with their gynecologist. After several such calls, he found the actual gynecologist and contacted their office. It turns out that they had new stationery and cards printed, and all of them had a misprint on the phone number, listing my friend's number instead of theirs, which was very close in number. My friend, being a decent person but a college student with no money, told them that if they just paid the phone company's change fee, they could have his number. They said that, oh no, he would have to pay it, and he would have to give them his number, and they were still using the new, incorrect stuff, and intended to keep giving it out. He said, "No, I'm a poor college student," and that was the end of the discussion. A few more days of this went by. He called them again, and they still demanded he pay to give them his phone number because of their mistake. He said, "I guess you're gonna have to pay for all new stationery and cards and contact every single one of your patients and tell them your error." They laughed at him and he hung up. After that, when someone called to make an appointment, he'd make an appointment. They could just show up expecting to be seen, and the doctor's office could deal with the angry pregnant woman. After a few weeks, when the appointments started happening, suddenly the office called and wanted to pay the change fee. Imagine that. He's a nicer person than me, and he let them have it. After their initial treatment, I'd have demanded that they get all new stationery and cards and call each and every one of their patients to tell them not to call me, and let them know that I'd be informing the police of the phone harassment resulting from their actions if they didn't do it. But hey, I guess I'm just a jerk like that. No, I probably would have done the same thing. Your friend definitely let them off easy on this one. Honestly, if you've made a mistake like this, you have to address it as a business. You can't be letting your clients call some random person. They have a lot of potential to screw with your business, like our original poster's friend did. It's just not worth it, and at least don't make an enemy of that person. It's not gonna end well for you. My roommate yelled at me for getting a cat after she moved out. My friend, 24-year-old female, was a recent roommate and moved out of state to pursue a job. She was allergic to cats. I had always had pets growing up and wanted to have one again. We had some outdoor cats that I often fed and always liked to pet. I never let them in while my roommate lived there. The week she left, I let one in, and the cat was so happy. I had to help him out. I gave him a bath, got him fixed, and he's now a very pampered prince living mostly inside with me. She was going to come back in 2 weeks to pick up the last of her things, but I promised myself that I would clean up before she came and vacuum as much of the cat hair as possible. Not that he sheds that much. I did not tell her I was getting the cat. I had an incredible 2 weeks with the cat. Before she came back, I gave the cat to a friend to watch over so there wouldn't be any extra dander in the apartment. Mind you, I kept my roommate's door closed so the cat would not go in. She comes back, and if you've ever had a cat, you know there's always a slight smell and slight dander. She immediately starts asking questions as her eyes get puffy. I told her I got a cat, but it's not gone in her room and I tried to vacuum as much as possible. And I even got her allergy meds. She didn't have a bed, so she was expecting to sleep on the couch. The cat had been laying on the couch for the past 2 weeks. I got her an air mattress and put it in her room though. We went out on the porch so she could breathe a little better. She then proceeded to yell at me of how selfish I was and how inconsiderate I was. I told her she had moved, and I was doing her a favor by letting her store stuff at my place. She stayed 1 night and then left when she was supposed to stay 2 nights. We haven't talked in 5 days, which is rare for us. Was I the jerk here? I don't think you're being a jerk, honestly. I'm kinda with you. She moved out. You're entitled to get a pet if that's what you want. Now, you did know that she was coming back for some of her stuff, and it seems like you made every possible attempt to accommodate that. I don't really think that there's much else you can do beyond that. She needs to accept that it's your place now and you can do with it what you will. If you want a cat, then you can have a cat. My ex-husband forgot about the day he was supposed to spend with his daughter and blamed me for it. I, 26-year-old female, have a 7-year-old daughter. My ex, 28-year-old male, wasn't involved in her life by his own choosing. Back in December, he reached out. It took some time, talking, and a little therapy. He's been back in our daughter's life for about 4 months now. We're working with the courts to establish paternity and for him to get custody. In the meantime, I let him visit her at my place. He's taken her on day trips. Since getting a bigger apartment, he's had her spend the night. He was supposed to visit her Wednesday, have dinner with us, and watch a movie. We try to do things the 3 of us, per the therapist's recommendation, so she can see us getting along. My ex said he'd be over around 6 o'clock. He didn't show up. By 6:30, my daughter was hungry, so I fed her. I tried to put off the movie, but eventually let her watch it. She was disappointed about her dad not showing up. I put her to bed at 9. 11:30, my ex calls freaking out. He said he forgot we were supposed to have dinner. He only remembered because his girlfriend came home from work and asked how everything went. Rather than apologizing, he got mad at me and asked why I didn't call him. I said I'm not gonna chase him down. I already spent 9 months doing that when I was pregnant, begging him to be in her life. I'm not gonna do that now. It's up to him to make an effort and remember this stuff. We had therapy the next day, and she's on my side. However, my ex insists that I should have called. I'm frustrated that he hasn't tried to apologize to our daughter. My mom says that I should have called. Am I the jerk? I don't think you're being a jerk, but yeah, you could have called. I agree that it's up to him to remember this stuff. But we all have lives. We get busy. Things happen. It slipped his mind. But once 6:30 rolled around and he still wasn't there and your daughter was hungry, you should have given him a call. See if he was at least still coming by. But I agree that at the end of the day, if he had it all together, he would have already been there. I'm not inviting my parents or sister to my graduation because I don't want to deal with the disappointment. My parents have always put my sister Cassie first. Cassie did need extra support as she does have genuine issues with depression and anxiety, but they refused to compromise. It always came at my expense. The final straw was my high school graduation back in 2019. Cassie had a pageant at the same time. The plan was for both of our parents to attend the first half of Cassie's pageant, our mother would stay at Cassie's pageant, and our dad would leave to record my graduation. Before Dad was about to leave, Cassie said she was having anxiety and needed them both there. He texted me to find my own ride home from graduation. I had been so hopeful that my parents would finally follow through with their promise to be there for me. In the honors section class photo, I was the only student who didn't have any family members come. I felt awful. My mother, dad, and Cassie were already home when I got back. They had ordered dinner and were celebrating Cassie's pageant. They didn't even seem to remember or care about me and my graduation. My parents tried to act friendly and congratulate me, but I ignored them. My mom tried hugging me, but I pushed past her. I decided then that I just couldn't depend on them not to disappoint me. My graduation was 3 weeks ago. I didn't even bother reaching out to my mother, dad, or Cassie. I gave my ceremony tickets to 2 friends and donated the rest. My mother and dad reached out to me, saying that they had just learned about my ceremony through social media. Neither of them went to college, so they assumed that the college got out at the same time as the local high schools. They asked why I hadn't even asked them. I told them that they've proven that I can't depend on them by always leaving me as a second thought to Cassie. I know she has issues and needs extra support, but they never even tried to compromise, and I didn't want to deal with the disappointment again. My parents told me that they and Cassie were heartbroken that their daughter and sister would disregard them this way. We do have other family members who my parents are much closer with after the pandemic. We weren't really involved with each other before, which is why they weren't at my graduation and why we didn't go to their kids' graduations. They know both sides of the story, but told me I was the jerk. They said how my parents felt so bad about my high school graduation, and that I was being selfish and denied my parents the chance to make it right and finally be able to put their guilt behind them. I switched my social media to private to avoid these comments, but I'm now worried that they're right and I've been selfish and not understanding of Cassie's needs. Am I the jerk? I don't think you're not being understanding of your sister's needs. You are taking that into account. I think it's the other way around. Your sister needs to be aware of your needs and can't be hogging your parents like this. Surely she knew what she was doing when she asked your dad to stay behind when he was supposed to go to your graduation. That's a big deal. That's a big moment. Your parents not being there is something that both you and they remember. I think your family is right in that they do probably harbor a lot of guilt for not being there for your high school graduation. I understand why you would feel slighted, but I think all you've done here is damage the relationship further. My sister demands a clean plate for her second helping. At dinner last night, my sister wanted a second helping, so I took her plate and got her one. She was upset when she saw the plate and asked why I brought her a dirty plate. I said that it was her plate that she was just eating off of. She said that was nasty and I should have gotten her a clean one. I think that since she was the one just eating off it, it can't be that dirty. My father said that was indeed ill-mannered, although said she was worse for calling me on it in front of everyone. I think it's silly to get a new plate. The germs on it were her own. Am I being the jerk here? Honestly, I just find this one kind of funny because it's so small and petty. But yeah, who cares? It's the same plate. As soon as they throw that same food on a new plate, guess what? It's in the same state as the plate he just handed you. I really don't understand how this could escalate into something. Come on, guys, get it together. My cheating husband got my best friend pregnant twice. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Yesterday, I received a call from my best friend Amy's husband, Paul, claiming my husband was the father of her 4-year-old daughter, Kim. He said they got into an argument and she blurted out that Kim isn't his daughter and that Kim regularly spends time with her real dad, my husband. He snooped around and found out her dad was my husband. I'm so shocked and angry, I don't know what to do. Paul claims he has evidence of their ongoing long-term affair, and he'd like to meet up with me to show me it. I don't know if I should go. He wants me to meet him alone at his house. A part of me wishes he'd never told me. I asked him to send me something over text because I honestly didn't believe him, and he sent me a blurry video of Amy having sex with someone. She was moaning my husband's name, but you couldn't really tell if it was him in it because it was so dark. He sent me a few texts between them too. I wish I could unread them. I feel numb and sick. I haven't confronted my husband yet. I don't even have the energy to do that. He noticed something was off when he got home and asked me if I was okay, but I just shrugged it off and told him I was going to sleep. He decided to work from home today because he was worried I wasn't feeling well. I wish he hadn't. To make things worse, me and Amy are both pregnant. I'm 5 months and she's 7 months. Paul claims that the baby is also my husband's. He said he was planning on suing my husband for all of the money he spent raising his child, and Amy was planning to put him on child support. He said he was warning me in advance so I could apply before her. They're going to get a divorce. I just can't believe he would do this. I'm just hoping Paul will text me saying it was all a joke. Amy keeps texting me telling me she's sorry. I've ignored her so far, but I want to rage at her. I don't know what I'm going to do if we get a divorce. I don't think I can raise my baby alone. I feel dumb for posting this, but I have no idea what I should do. Should I just pretend I don't know? Oh no, I'm so sorry this is happening. Well, first things first, you need to sit down and confront your husband. You need that clarity, and whether he's going to admit it or not, you need to at least ask him and see what his reaction is. If he says no and you really feel like he's lying, I don't know. You can look into a personal investigator maybe and try and get some proof. If it turns out that it is really happening, just get a divorce, move on with your life. Family or someone will help you take care of the baby. You don't need to worry about that. Don't stay stuck in a relationship where you're not being appreciated and valued. I'm going to HR because I think the nickname my colleagues gave me is just straight up harassment. Long story short, I'm a nurse at a hospital, and I go to different floors as my job to help out. I have a pretty common name. Think Jessica or Amanda. There are several nurses with my name throughout the hospital, and sometimes multiple on the same floor. Today, I was working on a hall with a new nurse who didn't know me yet. She commented on how it was weird that this floor had 3 Jessicas on it. She asked me which one I was. I guess she thought I just worked on that floor, and I told her my last name. Then she asked if I knew the Jessica with the nipples that worked on float pool. The charge nurse was nearby, and I noticed her eyes get kind of big, and she looked nervous all of a sudden. I was confused for a moment because I'd never heard this description, and as far as I knew, I was the only Jessica in float pool. It dawned on me that she was referring to me without knowing I am apparently Jessica with the nipples. I guess this was just a known thing about me, because that nurse avoided me like the plague all day, and so did everyone else. The charge nurse tried to make it into a joke with me at lunch, and I laughed to hide my embarrassment, but I'm mortified. I had noticed my nipples sparingly in the bathroom mirror and thought it was just a rare thing when cold. I guess my nipples show through my sports bra and scrubs on a regular enough basis that it's become my secret identifier. I told a friend I was thinking about going to HR about this, but they said it was obviously a harmless identifier that I was never supposed to find out about, so it should have been no harm, no foul. Same as Jessica with the red hair or something like that. I feel it's not harmless though to use an identifier that's so embarrassing and made me the butt of jokes. I think I could be the jerk because I don't know what HR would do, and what if it's too extreme? I don't want anyone to be fired. If you don't want anyone to be fired and you just want the nicknames to stop, I would just address it. Up till now, you've been very passive with the people who are actually calling you this nickname. Just say, hey, I don't like that. Please don't do that. Even when I'm not around, don't call me by that. I'm sure they'll quickly be able to find another form of Jessica to call you. No harm done, no HR involved, no one loses their job. Because honestly, I don't think your colleagues are doing it with any kind of sexual connotation or harassment intended. But maybe I'm wrong. My company refuses to let me resign early despite the fact that there's nothing for me to do anymore. Okay, I'll take your money. Last month, my manager drops a bombshell. The company has decided to scrap the big project that my team has been working on for the past 2 years. We must wrap up everything, and starting from June, we'll all be moved to different teams. Now, I'm a data analyst, and the company doesn't have any open projects that require a data analyst. So they looked at my profile, saw I had some basic knowledge of programming, and decided to move me to the dev team. Both me and the dev team think it's an insane idea because I'll need lots of training before I become useful, and I don't even want to be a full-time dev. But upper management hasn't bothered to ask for our opinion before making all the arrangements. I immediately start looking for a new job, and as luck would have it, there's an extremely high request for data analysts in my area. Within a week, I have an offer in hand and I give my notice. I'm in the EU, and my contract is very strict regarding notice periods. A resigning employee must give 2 months' notice. This is entirely for the benefit of the company so that they can find a replacement. The same applies when a company fires an employee. They must give the employee 2 months' notice. However, it's possible to shorten the notice period by mutual agreement. So when I sit down with my manager in HR, I tell them I'd like to only give 2 weeks' notice and leave at the end of May. I tell them that I've already started wrapping up my activities before my move to the dev team, and I don't have any ongoing projects that I need to transfer to my colleagues, so 2 weeks is more than enough to finish documenting everything. They say absolutely no, I have to stay here for the entire 2-month period, which is fine by me. My new job doesn't start until August, and I don't mind being paid in the meantime. The only reason I suggested shortening the notice period was because I thought I was doing the company a favor. I thought I'd be stealing their paycheck if I stayed for 2 months, even though I don't have anything left to do. But since they pretty much told me I was being unprofessional or that I was trying to cut and run, okay, I'll take their money in exchange for sitting around doing nothing for a few more weeks. You may think, but original poster, they're gonna find some boring task for you. Well, they can try, but the projects they're working on are so different from what I do that I'm pretty much useless to them. For example, someone will ask, "Can you do XYZ?" And I'll honestly answer, I have no idea what XYZ even is, but I'd be happy to if you teach me. At that point, they'll say it would take too long and it's not worth it to train me since I'm leaving soon. So my working days now go like this. I show up at 9 a.m. sharp and go to my office where I'm the only person, since the others were moved to different teams. I have a leisurely second breakfast, check my email, then I send a message to our Teams group letting them know I'm free and to ask me if they need help with anything. Then I remote into my home PC and play games until lunchtime. I have lunch, coffee, and chat with my coworkers. They're quite nice. It's too bad that upper management is crazy. I'm gonna miss them. In the afternoon, I usually check Reddit, I chat with my friends if they're online, play a bit more, and I'm out the door at 5 p.m. By the way, they'd like for me to vacate the office so they can use it as a meeting room, but they can't until I leave. There are no empty desks anywhere. The dev team already hired someone else and has no space. So, tough luck, jerks. It almost feels like your company is trying to make an example of you or something by not letting you leave early. It seems very clear to you and everyone else around you that there's no reason for you to be there anymore. But hey, if they want to keep paying you for a few weeks until you start your new job, why not? I'd love to get paid to just sit around and do whatever I want from 9 to 5. This seems like a really stupid move on their part, but hey, I guess that's their prerogative. I reported my stepsister for bullying, and now she might be expelled from school. Here's the situation at hand. My stepsister, 17-year-old female, has been bullying this girl in our grade, Mia. Mia is a very shy person. We were never friends, but were friendly until the bullying started, and then Mia withdrew from everyone. I found out about the bullying over a month ago. People described it as not real bullying, but my stepsister has called her names and told her she doesn't deserve friends. I found a written note telling Mia this. I was ticked. My stepsister and I have never had a good relationship, always fighting, but I never figured she was an actual bully, just someone who got on my frickin' nerves. I ended up going to Mia's parents with what I knew and the evidence of the bullying, and now it's been brought up with the school and Mia's parents want my stepsister expelled. My dad is ticked. He said it was so unbelievably petty and mean-spirited to go to the girl's parents over sibling issues. I told my dad nothing between us would ever be sibling issues because we're not siblings, and my siblings, younger brother and sister, would never do that to another person. My stepsister has been suspended right now, but it looks like she'll be expelled Thursday when the big meeting happens. My dad's wife is freaking out, and so are my stepbrothers. With the exception of my siblings, everyone seems to think I'm wrong for what I did, for not at least talking to my stepsister first. I feel like going to Mia's parents was the right call because of how serious bullying can be for the person being bullied, and even calling someone names can cut a person really deep. But I never expected this kind of reaction. Life at home is very awkward right now. Am I the jerk? It's pretty clear the jerk in this story is your stepsister, but let's analyze your actions here. I do agree that a conversation with your stepsister could have happened first before throwing her under the bus, but I would understand why you might not want to be directly involved and would rather just she be held accountable for her actions, because at the end of the day, her actions are not okay. What she's doing is bullying. Expulsion sounds a little extreme, but it's definitely behavior that needs to be addressed. Entitled woman asks me a horrible question and gets insulted when I fire back. I'm happily married to a gay man, and yesterday, my husband and I were at a friend's house celebrating their birthday. At the end of the party, a small group of people were sitting around the fire talking crap when a woman who I don't know, friend of a friend type thing, asked me and my husband straight to our faces, "So, do you like being screwed up the butt, or is that your husband?" And before all of you ask, no, she wasn't drunk. She was the designated driver. I replied, "Do you like to screw on all fours or on your back?" She got mad and stormed off, calling me a jerk. At the time, everyone there laughed. Most were drunk, but the woman was my friend's girlfriend's relative of something, and now he and his girlfriend are getting some backlash. He's mad at me now, because even though what she said was offensive, I didn't need to stoop to her level. I'm starting to feel bad about it. The last thing I wanted was to cause trouble for my friend. So, am I the jerk? Honestly, she asked you an incredibly offensive question. She can't really be surprised if you fire back. And her reaction to your question is probably the same as your reaction to hers. Really just a taste of your own medicine situation. There's no way she can make this into a big deal without looking like an even bigger jerk for asking her initial question first. My daughter refuses to talk to me, so I refuse to pay her tuition. I, 45-year-old male, decided to stop paying my 19-year-old daughter's college tuition after she blocked me basically everywhere and won't talk to me. This started about 2 years ago, when I found out my then ex-wife, Bertha, 44, had an emotional affair and was kissing someone else. My ex and my daughter were really close. She was her only daughter while we had 2 younger sons. Though the divorce did change our relationship, I was still on good terms with my daughter. A couple months after that whole mess, one of my friends, Stacy, 31, was really there for me the whole time, and we decided to get together. I don't think our relationship is wrong. We're both over 30 and actual adults. Once again, we were mostly cordial still, though I'm pretty sure my ex had made some nasty remarks. Life went on until recently Stacy figured out she was pregnant. I do realize I'm older than the average dad, but once again, I don't think I did anything wrong. I also proposed to her because I do genuinely love her. My sons were entirely supportive and actually pretty excited when I told them. My daughter, on the other hand, got super mad, and presumably this is what led to the blocking silent treatment. All of this happened during December. Stacy gave birth 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about cutting my daughter's tuition for next year because she hasn't been at any family functions and hasn't talked to me since January. She figured it out through her college portal and got really mad once again. She talked about how I was marrying a person so much younger than me and so forth. It's like she only wants me for my money and doesn't want anything to do with me. Am I being the jerk here? It sounds like your daughter's having a hard time adjusting to your new relationship. She's not really even giving it a chance, which isn't fair to you or your soon-to-be wife. And she can't be surprised that if she's going to completely ghost you, that you're not going to continue to pay thousands of dollars for her to go to school. There is kind of an unwritten minimum social obligation here. And considering you really didn't do anything wrong, it's up to your daughter to try and mend that bridge. We don't choose who we love. You happen to fall in love with someone who's more than a couple years younger than you, but I still think it's perfectly okay. You're both consenting adults. Do what you want with your own life. I told my sister nothing she ever does is more important than my wife's school. My wife decided earlier this year she wanted to get a master's degree in business. She's been working full-time and attending school part-time on nights and weekends. She's taking summer classes so she can graduate sooner. One evening, when I wasn't home from work, my sister, a single mother who lives with my parents, came by unannounced and just dropped off her kids, 6-year-old male and 3-year-old female, because she had something to do. My wife was flustered because she was trying to get a mini paper done, and my sister said, "F you, here are my kids," and left. I left work early and took the kids back to my parents, and I found out my sister had a random meetup with her best friends because her friend got dumped. She thought this was important enough to disrupt my wife. We argued over how irresponsible my sister is, and I told her nothing you ever do in your life will be as important as my wife's school or career. My sister started crying about how I was being so unfair to her. It's hard for her as a single mom at her age. I told her, you made that mistake twice and thought everyone would help you. I'm not, and my wife's not. Raise your own kids. This made my sister cry harder, and my mom kicked me out of the house for disrespecting my sister and her children. This whole thing could have been avoided if my sister didn't act entitled to think she could just drop off her kids in the first place. Am I the jerk here? While I do think it's definitely a jerk move that she just drops off her kids and assume that you guys have free time and will babysit, I do think you came back a little hard on this one. You probably pushed a couple of buttons that were very personal. I think that what you said was completely unfair and unnecessary. You were being a jerk, even though she might have pulled a bit of a jerk move first. I gave my fiance's daughter the same present for her birthday that she gave me for mine. Nothing. Here's some background. I have dated a woman with 3 kids for 4 years at this point in time. I'm 32 and she's 42. The kids are not mine. Her kids are currently 22, 19, and 17. They all live at home. The oldest are girls and the youngest is a boy. I own a construction company and she owns a nail salon, and we're both financially stable. They idolize their dad that is basically non-existent in their lives. However, they hate me. Now the rant. I love the woman I'm with and have had, depending on your definition, a very successful dating life prior to meeting her. Due to her kids' ages and my age difference with her, prior to us getting serious, we did discuss the kids and parenting. To that end, I've been very committed to always be there for them and doing my best with anything they need. Despite this, over time, the family I wanted has basically broken down to the point where myself and her children don't interact in any fashion. My casual suggestions of having a movie night or game night once a week where we all sit down and talk has fallen on deaf ears. Instead, my fiance insists that as long as I treat her good, not to bother or worry about how her children view me or our relationship, and to simply be nice and say hello and things when our paths do cross, which I've done to 10,000 blank stares and no replies whatsoever. But I digress. When we first got together up until last year, I set a budget of $300 per kid for birthday and Christmas presents, and for 4 years bought the kids nice and thought out gifts, or just gave cash. Last December, my business was slow, and while I did keep to my budget for them, it was especially hard with the household bills and the gifts for parents and siblings. Nonetheless, I sacrificed and went without, because that's what dads do, right? Imagine my surprise when collectively the gift I received from the kids in return was a stick of deodorant with a fancy note saying, "This is deodorant, it makes you smell good, use it often." My fiance thought it was hilarious, if not in poor taste, and I laughed it off, not expecting anything in the first place. Fast forward, my birthday is in May. 1 child out of 3 said happy birthday to me, and none gave me a gift. Fast forward again, it's her daughter's birthday who just turned 13 last week. She was one of the two that neither wished me a happy birthday or gave me a gift, so I, in kind, did the same. Now, my fiance is mad at me and is calling me petty and childish. Before you judge me too harshly, we had a party for her in which I spent 2 days and stayed home from work to help with. I just literally didn't say one word to her daughter the entire day or give her anything. Finally, the conclusion. I err to you, Reddit, in your wisdom. Am I the jerk? Please tell me why or why not. For the record, her son was the one who wished me a happy birthday, and I am planning on giving him a gift in October. In my opinion, what goes around comes around. If they're not going to give you anything for your birthday and barely even acknowledge your existence, why would they expect anything in return? It seems to me that's the entitled thinking right there. I do agree that on the outside looking in, it could seem petty, but I completely understand where our original poster is coming from here. They don't feel respected or appreciated, so why are they going to go out of their way for you? My cruel daughter shreds letters from dead mother, so I disown her. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I, 51-year-old male, have 3 children. 1 boy, 1 girl, and 1 child is gender neutral. My son, Eric, 22, is the oldest. Ava, 20, is the middle child, and Charlie, 17, is my youngest. Now, sadly, when the children were all young, 11, 9, and 6, their mother, my wife, passed away in a car accident, and I've been raising them by myself ever since, as I've chosen to never remarry, since my wife was and is the love of my life. I'll say I'm definitely not a perfect father, but I've done the best I could to raise my children. Now, Eva has always been a bit more wild than her other siblings, even before her mother's passing. I've tried everything ranging from having sit-down talks with her to putting her in therapy, as well as taking parenting classes and reading books to see what I could possibly do to help. Therapy did seem to help a little bit, but she decided to stop going after she turned 18. Now, let me tell you the story as to why I'm here. Now, my daughter Ava still lives with me and Charlie as she goes to school, and has definitely been home more due to the pandemic, but has started to go out more now that they're letting up on some of the regulations. Now, I was out getting dinner with an old high school buddy of mine when I get a panicked call from my son who had been at my house hanging out with his siblings. To summarize what he told me, he got into an argument with Ava and Charlie sided with him. Ava became very volatile and even called Charlie a slur, which is a big no from me. So I headed home and tried to calm everything down. I told Ava that I didn't care what they had been arguing about and that she wasn't allowed to disrespect Charlie or Eric like that. Me and Ava now ended up being the ones to start arguing, but I soon shut it down when I realized it wasn't gonna help. I forced her to apologize and took away her car privileges until she learns to respect her siblings, and I thought that was the end of it. Well, next morning after work, I ended up coming home and finding scraps of paper all over. At first, I didn't get it, but then soon found out that she cut up about half a dozen letters her mother had written me when I was much younger. I was livid. I know it was her because I have a couple of cameras in my house. I just walked into her room and told her to get out. She was smug and rolled her eyes, but then I yelled, "Get the F out of my house!" And she realized I was serious. She was crying and screaming, but I had felt sorta numb at that point, and she left with a friend of hers. But now I feel like this was too harsh, but I want to stand my ground. Am I the jerk for this? I think your reaction in this situation is perfectly natural. I would have been absolutely furious as well. What your daughter did was unforgivable. Those are some of the last memories you have of your dead wife. For her to tear them up like that is just heartless. I don't blame you at all for acting the way you did. Now, that being said, she is a young girl and she probably can't support herself on her own at this point. I'm sure you're worried for her and want to know that she's doing okay. I honestly don't know what kind of punishment would fit this, but I would hope that you guys can sit down and work things out to a point where she can at least come home. I'm sure you don't want to be worrying about her out on her own. Entitled mother wants me to wake up at 6 a.m. so I can drive her kid to school for her. This happened a few years ago, but still irritates the heck out of me. My child attended a private school about 45 minutes from my town. Since there was no bus or public transportation, the school provided a list of parent names and numbers so people can create their own carpools if they wanted. I worked halfway between my hometown and the school, and for the previous years, I had offered to drive every morning and pick up every Friday afternoon, if the other 3 parents in the carpool could divide the 4 afternoon picking up between them. This had worked great for 2 years, and I didn't mind doing 5 mornings a week and my half-day Friday afternoon, as long as the other 3 managed to get my child back to our hometown the other 4 afternoons. Since the 3 students I was driving graduated the previous year, I made my offer available to incoming freshman parents under the same agreement. 3 new families took me up on it. We met at a parking lot in our town each morning at 6:30 a.m. so I could get the children to school by 7:15 for a 7:30 start. After about 2 weeks of driving daily, I had the following conversation by text, which was grouped with the other members of the carpool. "Hi, just checking in to see how things are going." So far so good. "The reason I'm calling is my daughter really likes to get to school at least 30 to 45 minutes before start time in order to talk to her friends. So I spoke to the other parents in the carpool and we all agreed to start meeting at 6 a.m. so all the kids can arrive at school earlier." Sorry, but I'm really not going to wake up and get out 45 minutes early so your child can socialize before school. "But the rest of us agreed that we can meet earlier." "Yeah, we can make that work." "Well, that's nice. But since I'm the one that drives every morning and must shower and get ready for work before meeting, while both of you just drop your kids off in sweats and slippers, I'm not willing to change my schedule." "That seems very selfish of you. My daughter says she's stressed out each day because she only has 15 minutes to get to homeroom and never has time to get a coffee or a donut. The other parents agree with me that earlier is better. I don't know why you're being difficult." Silence from the other 2 families. Allow me to be clear. This is never going to happen as long as I'm driving. "I don't think you should have complete control of everyone's schedule simply because you're willing to drive every morning." Well, since you all agreed, I suggest the other 3 of you figure out a way to get your children to and from school between you. I'll be arranging to get my child home on my own going forward. I never spoke to anyone in the carpool group again, and have often wondered if the other parents were ticked off or embarrassed that one person screwed up a good thing for them, or if they all really agreed that I should wake up earlier and thought I was being selfish for wanting my beauty sleep. Am I the jerk? They shouldn't be agreeing on stuff like that when you're the one that has to drive. You're kind of the anchor of this whole situation here. It's pretty ballsy to just assume that you're going to be okay with this. I'm totally with you. You already have to get up ridiculously early. You're not going to want to get up 45 minutes earlier just so her kid can socialize for a bit. There's plenty of time and ways to socialize. It doesn't need to be at 6 o'clock in the morning. "Lady, I'm wearing a suit and tie. What makes you think I work here at Costco?" I was the owner of a computer repair shop / IT consulting firm and had a fairly busy day. I had a 3-hour meeting and site evaluation in the morning for a new contract. Then I had to pick up ingredients from Costco, especially since a few people who tried my family recipe for pasta sauce talked me into making it for 150 attendees of a charity event. And I was rushing as quickly as I can since I need to simmer the sauce for 2 hours. Dinner started in 4 hours. My Italian grandma's cooking made me hate ready-to-cook pasta sauce, and I didn't want to be let down by reheating Prego. My map was fairly linear. Client's office, Costco, my house, potluck. Since that particular Costco has long lines no matter when I go, I decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get my groceries as well. Also, since the charity was more formal and time wasn't on my side, I didn't bother to change out of my suit. But I also made the mistake of jamming out in the aisles with a $250 set of Sennheiser Bluetooth headphones. As I pushed a fully loaded cart down the aisle and stepped away for a moment, an older lady starts snatching stuff from my cart, and before I can even react, she yanked my headphones off. "You're on the clock! What the heck are you doing with these?" Now, just a bit of a side note, I'm in IT, so I'm used to dealing with clueless people in a professional manner, but some people can still catch me off guard every once in a while, especially when I'm off the clock. After gathering myself a bit, I replied, when was the last time you saw a stock clerk in a suit and tie? I don't work here. Well, you could be a supervisor of this store. I don't know. It's still very unprofessional of you to have headphones on during business hours. But ma'am, I don't work here though. Even if I did, it's not your decision. Now, please, give me my headphones back. Thinking on my feet and not wanting to waste time getting the store manager involved, I then pulled out one of my business cards that states that I'm the owner of my company. Then I replied in a sarcastically complacent tone of voice and said, "Okay, here, let me give you the owner's business card and you can call him." Now, most intelligent people would have taken the hint and seen that it's not Costco. But then she whips out her $10 flip phone and starts dialing. I prep by turning my phone's ringer all the way up. My phone starts ringing. I purposely wait 10 seconds while shoving my caller ID screen in her face and ensuring that she sees the caller ID coming from her phone. Then I pick up and say, "Thank you for calling my company. Can the fellow Costco customer have his headphones and tomato sauce you took from his cart back?" She then angrily shoves my headphones back in my hands and tosses the tomato sauce back in a way that manages to break one of the cans open, then storms off. Jerks just can't accept when they're wrong. This lady's judgment was off from beginning to end. Your first words to her explained everything. When have you ever seen a stock clerk in a suit and tie? I don't understand why people just assume that the person next to them works where they are. There are other customers in the store too. Believe it or not. Then our poster hands her the card and she still doesn't clue in. Like, come on, lady. Entitled old woman insists that she should be able to buy my service dog. So I went for a nice day out with my mother and boyfriend. This was last year. Anyway, so we were strolling about at some beautiful gardens and my partner went to the bathroom. Some old lady who could barely walk approached me and my service dog. She started petting him, ignoring the fact that it said, "Do not touch working dog" on his harness. So she gets into conversation with me about my dog and starts asking some really weird questions. "What do you feed him? How much? Does he toilet in the house? Does he chew up furniture?" And things like that. Stuff you would ask someone if you wanted to buy their dog. I only answered a few of the questions and told her what service he does for me. At the end of the conversation, she goes, "I wish I had him. He would make an old woman like me so happy. Since I lost my father, I've been so lonely. Would you ever consider selling him?" I was like, heck no. I've been with this dog for 7 years and I love him with all my heart. My boyfriend came out of the bathroom and we walked off. I thought that was all. Nope. I see a post on the Facebook page of the place we went and it said something like, "My mother and father went here yesterday and came across a beautiful dog. She says he's golden in color and personality. Pointed ears kinda looked like a German Shepherd mix. The young woman crudely walked away from my mother before she had the chance to exchange details. My mother is offering money for the dog. She said she's fallen in love with the dog. Can anyone help her, please?" So I saw that and I flipped. A woman was setting me up to be robbed of a creature I love more than anything else in my life. I ended up reporting it to the police and the gardens. I still think about it to this day, and I keep a close eye on my dog in case there's any jerks around. How are you going to see someone at the park with their dog and just assume that they're going to be willing to sell it to you? Especially when it's a service dog. That dog plays a very important role in its owner's life. Even if it weren't a service dog. No way am I selling you my dog just because you like him. You think you like him? Imagine how I feel about him. I took my niece on a vacation to Japan, and apparently that makes me a jerk. I, 33-year-old female, have a niece, Emma, 14-year-old female, from my late brother Leo. Her mother, Nancy, 38, remarried 3 years ago, and has a stepdaughter, Kay, who's also 14. I'm not rich, but I'm doing quite well financially. As Emma's only living paternal relative, I've set aside money to take care of her. This is mostly in the form of paying for Emma's violin and language lessons, something Leo started. Nancy works, but can't afford these lessons on her own. Her husband also works, but he has to pay child support for Kay's half-siblings from the marriage prior to Kay's mother, so I don't expect much from him. I never really bought Emma expensive gifts, as I know that will create resentment with Kay. For birthdays and Christmas, I usually give books and school-related stuff. Boring, I know, but Emma is studious and she loves them. However, this summer, as a reward for making the highest honor roll at her school, I decided to take Emma on a vacation with me to Japan. My workplace sent me over there for some QC, and then I took vacation time after. Emma stayed with me, and my assistant took care of her when I was busy. It was a great 2 weeks. We returned home happy with plenty of souvenirs for Emma's family. A couple days ago, Emma called me, very upset. Every summer, her family goes on a trip together for a week or so. This summer, however, Nancy and her husband decided not to go and used the money set aside for the trip to redecorate Kay's room instead, claiming that Emma has already had her getaway in Japan with me. Nancy told Emma they'll do her room next summer. I called and told Nancy she wasn't being fair in how she treated Emma. Nancy told me that Kay wasn't lucky enough to have some rich aunt taking care of her needs, so she was trying to even things out for Kay. I thought that reasoning was BS, but Nancy said that I was spoiling Emma. Am I the jerk? It's not spoiling if it's a reward. You've kept your gifts very modest over the years. However, now your niece has had a very big accomplishment that you want to celebrate with her. It's not fair that her niece should miss out on these experiences just because her stepsister's going to miss out on them too. That's not our original poster's obligation or problem. You've done nothing wrong. It's a shame that you're made to feel like you did. My father-in-law insists upon the his house, his rules policy, and I had to tell him to shove it. My wife and I are currently living with her father temporarily. He's a very fastidious person, which I respect. He likes to devote every Saturday to cleaning. I picked up my oldest child from my ex Friday night. He's 9. My father-in-law wanted him to participate in the cleaning of the whole house today. I said he didn't need to because he hadn't participated in creating any mess. My father-in-law insisted that everyone in the house needs to participate, but I said no, that he needs to unpack and settle in. My father-in-law was very insistent. He said that under his roof, he would insist upon his way of doing things. My wife said we need to respect her father and abide by his rules when we're in his house. I said no. I said he can kick me out if he wants, but I make the decisions for my son, and the answer is no. My father-in-law has been furious all day and demanded an apology. I apologized, but I still didn't make my son participate in the cleaning. My wife is upset with me for upsetting her father. I just feel that I make the decisions for my children, regardless of whose home I'm in. Does that belief make me a jerk? I think your reasoning in this situation was completely fair. Honestly, I would have just been happy with he wasn't here to create any mess, so he shouldn't be held responsible for cleaning up. That alone makes sense to me. Now, I totally understand the my house, my rules policy for certain things. But yeah, I really don't feel that this one's fair to the kid. Surely father-in-law can see that and compromise this one time. My wife is furious that I went to work instead of coming to our daughter's birthday party. I, 42-year-old male, am a registered nurse. My wife, 41-year-old female, and I have a daughter who turned 8 today, and we decided to throw a party for her. Despite me working full-time at a hospital and part-time at an aesthetics clinic, our finances are such that we're always late on the mortgage because of our other expenses. Mainly because my wife has a career as an equestrian, and her expenses for that career set us back about $38,000 a year. Add that to our house in a gated community close to the stables where they keep my wife's horse, and our student loans, shopping, golf, etc. We're always behind on our mortgage. So I was shocked to find out that the day after we were denied for a very small loan as well as a credit card that caters to people with bad credit, that my wife paid an extra $550 for a better party photographer. We couldn't get the deposit back for the other one. In the days leading up to the party, I was losing sleep over our finances. Pulling doubles has become my norm, but I'm usually off Saturdays. However, I have a reputation as being the one who will pick up any shift on short notice. So much so that my coworkers resent me, because management asks why they can't be like me. So a coworker got sick last minute and I was told Friday night that they needed somebody for all of Saturday, offering a 12-hour shift. I knew that my daughter's party was today, but I knew that I would have spent the whole party sweating about the fact that we can't pay our mortgage. So I decided to pick up that shift. When my wife found out I was going to work at 7 a.m. and not going to be home until evening, she was furious and accused me of being a bad father. She's not talked to me since. Am I the jerk for trying to pay bills? My main issue with this one is how your wife spent a bunch of extra money when you guys are already struggling to pay your bills. Maybe she just doesn't understand the severity of your guys' financial situation, but she's gotta wrap her head around it. You can't be affording to waste money on a better photographer. I mean, you guys had already paid a deposit to one. That's literally money just thrown away, on top of the fact that you're now paying more for this new photographer. It's just not in the budget. Sometimes you need to accept these things. You're not doing your family any favors by digging them a deeper hole in terms of debt. I get that you want to throw a nice party for your daughter and have some nice pictures, but surely you'd rather have a roof over your heads. Sometimes you just need to be able to make that trade-off. Things just aren't worth it at the cost of other more important things. You are not by any means a bad father. I'm sure that is where you want to be, but unfortunately, because of the situation you guys are in, you feel you need to be at work. That's your fatherhood responsibility signal going off, not you being a bad father. I think you guys really need to sit down and figure out a budget together, and both parties need to stick to it, or it doesn't matter.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.